You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing they're Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is...
Tobias.
And this week we're going to be talking to you about little metallic men. But first, Tobias, how was your weekend?
Oh boy, I had a great weekend, actually. I continue to be busy with the aftermath of unsolved mysteries, which again has been great. But people continue to reach out to me, and so anybody listening who came here from that or reached out to me as a result of that, just please know that if I seem slow to respond, it's because of the sheer volume of messages that I've received and continue to receive, and I am going through them as quickly as possible. And even if we've already been conversing, it still might take me several days to respond to whatever the most recent message from you is. So, thank you for your patience. I really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Interestingly enough, I wanted to mention this, speaking of the Unsolved Mysteries stuff. So Drew, Drew, he asked a question during our Q&A, right?
Drew, who's that? I'm just kidding. I totally...
Right. So longtime listener and experiencer who had asked about, I think he was asking specifically about, was it about shadow people? Because he had also had shadow people experiences. I'm trying to remember what. Okay. So
Night
he actually...
visitors, kind of more so, but yes.
Okay. So he had reached out to me privately, and I think he messaged the podcast Facebook page too. Mm-hmm. But he messaged me privately as well. And I thought it would be best because he had further questions. And rather than just answer them for him, I thought it would be nice to answer them for everybody, because what's been really weird about this, but weird in the best way possible, is the number of people who have reached out to me about their own weird nighttime visitation experiences, usually involving shadow people. I've probably received as many reports of that as I have winged humanoids as a result of Unsolved Mysteries. So that's been very eye-opening. I think that nighttime visitation experiences and shadow people as phenomena are probably much more widespread than a lot of people would imagine. So stay tuned for more on that. But let me get to Drew's questions real quick. So he asked, this shadow man, how tall do you think he was? So he asked if he was as tall as the door jamb, 7 feet or so. And, I don't think he was that tall. The thing about it is that he wasn't in a doorway or something, so I couldn't compare him to that height. I would guess when I woke up and I seemed to be floating, I would have been at about chest height or a little less. Like, just if you picture the sternum, right in your breadbasket there, that's, I think, about where I was compared to this person, whatever. So, realistically, they were probably 5-something, 6-something feet tall, somewhere in that area. So like a normal human height too, like nothing particularly unusual about that. And then he asked, do you recall what the hand looked like that pressed you back down? The number of fingers, length. Yeah, it was all normal. It, again, literally looked like the silhouette, like all black silhouette of an otherwise normal human. If there was one particularly odd characteristic, there were no clothes to speak of. So, there was no clothes in the silhouette. You know, like even if you just see an outline of somebody, you'd be able to tell that they were wearing clothes or something. There was nothing like that. So I guess it was just like a fairly normal but nude shadow person. You know, just
But
just
no
touching
silhouette
me
of
in
dick
bed.
and balls either.
What's that?
No silhouette of dick and balls though either.
No, well, I didn't see the profile. So
Fair.
I was looking at him straight on. I also didn't see their waist, you know, like, because from my perspective, literally just saw him from like the chest up. Yeah, next time if it happens again, I'll look for a dick and I'll be like,
look down.
yeah, like what's shadow person dick situation like? What
gotta
are we
know.
looking at here? You know, bigger or smaller than Bigfoot? That's important. It'll tell us a lot about them as a species. Okay, and then I think he had one more thing. He said, it's odd that you said it was on the left of you, as they have always been on my right side. So there's a pretty easy explanation for that, and that's because my bed was up against the wall, and so the right side of my bed was a wall, and there would have been no place for anybody to stand over there. So I don't know that the side that it appears on really matters all that much. I don't know if there would be a significance other than convenience. So, but yeah, that should answer all of Drew's questions. What else did I do this weekend? Emily and I don't, well, it really wasn't over the weekend, although Friday counts as the weekend, right? So we did a couple of Small Town Monsters podcasts that were really fun. So we had a chance to hang out with Aaron and Heather from Small Town Monsters, mostly, you know, separately in their separate podcast. But we did the Lore You Know on Friday, and because it was Small Town Monsters Live, and then the Lore You Know, and the Lore You Know we just did on Friday. And the reason that I'm mentioning that specifically is because I fucked up and I was so embarrassed. Heather had asked me about role-playing games because she likes role-playing games too, which is really cool. That's part of why we're friends. And so I was telling her about this new campaign that I was going to start for this game called Delta Green. And sort of the premise of this game is that you play as government agents or employees, really, and you uncover conspiracies surrounding these horrible interdimensional nightmare monsters, right? And I was like, well, for the campaign that I'm going to run, I created this organization called APRO. And I decided that was going to stand for the Advanced Anomalous, what was it? Advanced Anomalous, like, Phenomena Research Office or something. I'd have to look at my notes, but I'm pretty sure that's what I landed on. And then I went on to explain, like, my inspiration for that was the government's real efforts to investigate weird shit, you know? Because part of the game is that, like, this organization, APRO, like, nobody actually wants to work for it. You know, it's kind of a joke. They're like, well, this is a career dead end, so enjoy. But then it turns out that there's really something to this stuff, and you become involved in some conspiracy, kind of like X-Files, right? And I was like, yeah, you know, so I'm basing it off of actual government programs like Arrow. And then I completely bungled what Arrow stands for, which I fucking know. Like, I know what it stands for. I've been covering Arrow since it fucking began. You know, I watched the progression from, you know, ATIP up until Arrow and everything in between. And so it obviously, I mean, we know it's the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And what the fuck did I say? I got it mixed up with my made up thing. And so I said, like, I don't fucking know, like, Advanced All-Domain Resolution Office or something. And I was so embarrassed. And like, and then I knew that was wrong. And I was like, fuck, now I can't think of it. And so I had to come back later and be like, no, this is what it really is. But the only thing I could think of, right, because we're familiar with the UFO field, the only thing I could think of was all of these UFO nerds just pushing up their glasses like in unison and just going like, well, obviously he is not qualified to speak on UFOs, you know, just like motherfuckers, like they will never let this go ever. Like years of my life devoted to the study of this subject just thrown away in an instant because I forgot what fucking Arrow stood for when I wasn't prepared to answer the question in a podcast that was about something else entirely.
I couldn't tell you.
It was so frustrating.
I couldn't tell you what it stands for off the rip. I really couldn't. You know what? I'll tell you what it stands for. Edging. Because that's what it is.
Edging. Well, I know, like it's because it's goofy. It's the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is just a goofy ass government name, but it has a cool acronym because Arrow is fun. That sounds like a superhero organization.
Yeah. Is it still Arrow? Didn't it change? It was like something else, and then it turned into Arrow.
Several things. Like Arrow is the most recent thing. Arrow has a website you can go to now to see like their official explanations for unclassified cases. So
well, and you know what's happening right now as we're doing this podcast and as people are listening to it, you know, the UFO bros are sitting there going, actually, it stands for, it used to be this. You know, they're because that's how they are. You're right. That's how they are.
UFO Twitter. Yeah, that's who I picture. Is just UFO Twitter being like, well, there goes his credibility. Yeah. You know. Do you even know who
Gary Nolan is, Tobias? Do you even know who that is? Heard of him?
Right. Oh God.
I like Gary Nolan. I'm not gonna shit on him. I like him, but
he seems nice. I don't know him personally. I know of him. But
do you know?
I know, right? Apparently not. People's obsession with the government interest in UFOs is baffling to me as somebody who regularly works with witnesses, because it just feels like if what you're interested in is some kind of truth, right? You're not going to find that from the government, but you might find it by going out in the field and investigating and speaking with witnesses and doing field work and stuff like that. So,
or getting your butthole probed by some grays. That might help.
You don't even need grays. You can probe your own butthole.
That's true.
If that's what you're after. That's all I'm saying.
Nate's got to clip that one. That was good. Caught me off guard. I should have known better.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, that was pretty much everything of note. Otherwise, just plugging away in the book, of course, continuing to interview like interesting people for it. And now we're getting ready to plan for Mothman Festival and then like the Van Meter Visitor Festival right after that. And then October, I have something literally every single weekend. Like I'm going to be in Cedar Falls, Iowa on the 5th. Then the following weekend, I'm in Louisville for the Goatman Festival. And then the weekend after that, I'm going to a gaming, convention in Madison. So that's going to be super fun. That's not paranormal related. I'm just excited about it. And then the weekend after that, like the 26th, I have a buddy of mine in Madison who's a chef, and we're kind of brainstorming like a paranormal dinner kind of thing where, like people would buy, because he's a really good chef. He's very talented. And he does a lot of like community stuff as well. Like he's very involved with the local community. And so his idea was like, hey, what about like Black and Indigenous stories? And I was like, that's fucking brilliant, because they're way underrepresented. And especially for like Indigenous people, when you do hear a story related to them, it's always told by some white person who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. So that would be amazing. Like I would love that. And so that's what we are planning. He's doing most of the planning because he knows way more about all of this, than I do. He regularly kind of plans these kinds of like dinners and stuff, like these themed dinners. And then I'll just be there to hopefully make people feel comfortable with sharing their experiences. And maybe I'll do a presentation or just, talk at them for a while and try to feel, make people feel comfortable so they'll be willing to get a share. But yeah, I'm excited about that. I think that'll be really cool. But yeah, I don't know. Now I'm just talking to talk. So, how was your weekend?
Yeah, that's what we do sometimes as podcasters. We're good at that. That's why
Right.
we do it, you know? It was okay. I didn't do a lot. Like I said, last week was the start of school for my kids. So I decided to not do a whole lot of heavy lifting. But, a couple of things of note definitely is that I got the last episode for the first season of Fringes of Reality up and out. You guys can listen to that now.
Yay.
Yeah, it is the last episode, but it's not going to be the season. It's not going to be the final season, so it will be back. But go listen to Chris from Conspire Theory talk about his weird experiences, and even better than that, he does share a particular experience on the show. He kind of talks about the family dog a lot. Chris has got a lot of really wholesome stories of the paranormal, which is interesting because you don't really hear that a lot. So Chris had this wonderful idea to make a comic book because he's also a really impressive artist. So he's making a comic book out of other wholesome stories of the paranormal, including one of his own that he's including in it. And I get to be involved with it. So
Nice.
yeah, check out the episode, kind of anticipation of what we're looking for, the kinds of stories that will be in it. It's called Twilight Sentinel, I think. Oh my gosh, if I butcher it, he's gonna be so mad at me. He's gonna be like, actually, he's gonna be one of those fucking people. I already know.
Yep.
And here I am butchering it. Anyway, I'm going to post some pictures up of some of the illustrations on my Patreon. If you guys are subscribed there, I want to check that out. Otherwise, it probably won't be out until next year. So shut the fuck up and be patient. I don't know what to tell you, And, speaking of things that will probably, and God, fingers crossed, hopefully come out next year. I also did a lot of writing this week. On my Injured Cold book, and it has been this part's easy. So I've been working on this Injured Cold book because the Injured Cold research and investigation has oddly picked up even more after the death of the key player here, Tanya Derenberger, so of course that kind of reignited my interest in the topic a bit. I didn't really initially plan on putting a book out about Indrid. It wasn't really my story to tell, but it has just continued to evolve and get weirder and weirder. So what else am I going to do, right? Might as well write a book about it. But the first half is super easy. The second half is super easy, right? The first half, it's the story you all know and love. It's the story of how Woody met Indrid, right? So I get to tell that part. And then the second story is how Tanya plays a part in all of this. But then the third part of it is what my part has been in all of this, which gets really complicated and is currently an ongoing investigation. So hopefully I can, cinch that a bit and make it something that's readable and something that you guys like. We'll see. So anyway.
Oh, sure.
So I started it, and, I wrote at least Woody's part of it, so that's good. And I am hoping, I don't want to put a date out there, but I'm hoping that I have it available by my first event of next year. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. It'll only happen if I make it happen, right? So.
Yeah, well, of course. So, if you need any help or anything, we can talk about it, off air. But just let me know. I've got a couple books out, so I have some experience with this kind of stuff. I know, right?
If I read it all, maybe I'd know that, but I'm just kidding.
If only I knew how to read.
Yeah, it's terrible, No, definitely. I've also been recording, the investigation as it goes. That was something that I learned when I first got into this with the Mothman stuff. Record everything. It doesn't matter if you're going to use it for something or not. Record it, because you'll forget a lot of conversations that you have. You'll forget what you did. And of course, you get better chances of catching anything weird if it does happen. So I did start, but I started getting better and better at recording as I was recording that stuff. So some of the early Mothman stuff I have is just straight trash. I'll be honest. It's 3-hour car rides of me just talking to people and, us kind of going back and forth on theories and stuff like that. It's not good. The Indrid stuff's definitely a lot better. What will I do with it? I don't know. We'll see. It's not done yet. We'll see. So anyway, that's what I did.
Okay. Well, time well spent.
Thank you. I know I shouldn't I'm so hard on myself, right? I actually did stuff. I should feel better.
Yeah, that's great. There you got nothing to be ashamed of.
Good point.
I mean, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. I don't know if there's something secret that you should be ashamed of. I can't vouch for that.
Well, there is that one thing, but you got to subscribe to the Patreon for that. So I don't. Just kidding. There's nothing shocking over there. I promise. Well, we did do that breakdown of Hellier. So if you guys want to hear that, it's over on Patreon. Anyway.
Oh, what?
Not me and you, but me and Pato. Yeah,
I know. I should have.
Maybe we'll do it again.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it again. We'll kind of be talking about Hellier a little bit today. A little bit, not much. A little bit.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get in some news. How about that?
Yes, news.
How about that? So this one I wasn't going to initially share on the news this week, even though I was aware of it. But it got such a massive reach that I felt like it's important to talk about because clearly people want to talk about it. So on August 13th in Williamsburg, Virginia, a lot of people out and about during the day were shocked and in awe of a black ring that they could see in the sky. So, people are like, what the hell is this? Oh my God, what is this black ring in the sky? And, a lot of people took different pictures of it. It hung around for a while, about a half an hour before eventually it dissipated into the sky, on its own accord. And it's been all over the news. It's been everywhere all over the news. Now, the news has said there's no explanation for it, right? It looks like a smoke ring, right? That's what you would think. But we talked to the fire chief, and he said there were no fires in the area, so he doesn't know. So obviously it's a mystery, right?
Oh, I assume it's some sort of portal or possibly a UFO or like a sky beast of some sort.
Yeah, the sky ripped open, something. Yeah, guys, it's just a smoke ring.
That's the best part. There are so many different things that will cause that kind of smoke ring. It can be everything from like a blown transformer to like purposeful pyrotechnics, right? And just the fact that who cares if the fucking fire chief doesn't know what's going on? Do people expect him to be aware of literally every single instance of something like that happening in the entire area he's responsible for? If it didn't involve somebody calling 911 to report a fire, why would he know? And also, even if it did, why would he know? Like,
I was a kid that grew up in the Midwest. Do you know how many fires I started and put out, and also how much shit I blew up? I mean, it happens. Like, it's not
right.
And nobody knew about it. It's just kind of a part of life. I don't know. I don't know why people are going crazy over this. I don't. But Tobias, you're saying that you said that you've seen a history of people reporting these smoke rings in the sky.
I literally stopped covering them because they all have very simple, prosaic explanations. We know the kinds of things that cause them. And every time it happens, the local news, and I am sorry, local news, but if you want me to start respecting you, you're going to have to stop being such a fucking joke. Local news will always latch onto this shit for fucking clicks and views because they are as thirsty as the thirstiest clickbait bullshit site on the internet for fucking clicks and views. So they latch onto this stuff and share it as though it represents something actually interesting. And then they can play the X-Files theme in the background and like the anchors can be like, oh, what is it? I don't know. Maybe aliens. But it's really always something like I just said. It's fucking pyrotechnics or some kind of explosion or like a blown transformer or something can create these fucking smoke rings. They don't last very long. You know how you should know that it's not a real paranormal event is that a bunch of people saw it in broad daylight and took pictures of it.
Right.
Like that's your first fucking clue.
Yeah. And that is kind of a testament to it, right? Is that all these people took a bunch of different pictures of it from different angles at different time intervals. And like the articles going around on social media in that initial picture, in that first picture, it does kind of look weird. And if you were somebody that didn't know shit about anything, you'd be like, oh, that's weird. What's that?
Yeah.
If you didn't click on the article, then like you would stick with that. Oh, that's fucking weird. And what's sad is that people clearly don't click on the articles, because when you click on the articles and you look at the other pictures, it is very obviously a ring of smoke. It changes shape. It slowly starts going away. There's nothing weird about it, you know?
Not at all. And the fucking news is as guilty as anybody. The job of journalists is to inform the populace. Like, that is their fucking job. And no, not even a job. Their responsibility, their sacred fucking duty is to keep people informed, not to reinforce standards of ignorance based around their fucking thirst for clicks and views. Okay? Like, that is fucking horseshit. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, it is. Well, and then, I mean, let's talk about like how garbage typical local news station websites are. So it's such a fucking to-do to even click on these articles and scroll through it to even, because a lot of them did at the bottom. They're like, well, the police chief didn't have an answer, but it could be these things. Some people think it could be this, is what they said.
Yeah.
But like, let me tell you, it is an obstacle just to get to the bottom of that article with all the terribly displaced ads, the horrible formatting for mobile. God,
Right.
it was, I get why people give up in the middle of articles and just close out of them.
They might think that they're done with the article, because you'll get to a point where the ad break is so large, you're like, is this the end? I don't know. I guess. Feels
And
like
I get
the end.
it. You got to make your money, and that's how you make your money. But like, goddamn, do you have to have 10 ads in a row just to even? I mean, sometimes you can't even scroll past some of them. You're just now stuck scrolling on the ad itself, and it takes up the whole screen, and you're just over it.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, I think it all kind of speaks to the need for like public funding of journalism, but that's beyond the scope of our of our humble podcast.
Whew.
But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
mess. Like, it's just so disappointing.
Yeah. So, but we definitely wanted to talk about it because it did get a huge reach. I mean, again, I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and our local news reported it, which is sad.
Right.
So,
Hey, 24-hour news cycle, fucking sink or swim, baby.
and I was like, really? I had seen it because I'm part of a bunch of paranormal groups on Facebook and shit, and people were posting it there, and I expect it there. But when I just saw it on regular local news, I was like, oh, hell no. Oh, God. Here we go. So I had to talk about it a little bit. It's probably nothing but a smoke ring. If it looks like a smoke ring and acts like a smoke ring, guess what? It's probably a portal from another dimension. So
yeah, right. It's definitely nothing. So go spend your time on literally anything else.
So there's that. Another one I want to talk about here comes in the form of a photograph. I'm not going to link the black smoke ring in Virginia. You guys can find that one on your own. However, I will link you to the only place I know where to link you to, a particular YouTube video that features the story and the photograph in question here. So this is a little interesting because I kind of got to watch firsthand. I kind of got to watch this play out. So as the story goes, as reported to Ron and Joe over at Wild and Weird West Virginia, a teenager is with family, and they are either at or near a local cemetery. It seems that they were near it, maybe at a park that might be connected to a cemetery, but of course they haven't disclosed the actual location. And while they were there, the teenagers noticed what they described as like skeleton babies or skeleton toddlers running around the cemetery. And, they claimed that they were just kind of playing, there was two of them, they were just kind of playing like a game of chase, like you would see two young kids doing. And as this is happening, one of them, the teenager in question, took a photo, allegedly. There is a photo of this, whatever it might be. And, they went and grabbed some of the adults. Well, the adults kind of weren't really having it. They weren't really interested in checking it out initially. So they gathered some of the other teenagers or kids in the group, and they came along and they observed these skeleton toddlers running around chasing each other in the cemetery. Eventually, some of the adults did get on board and come take a look, and they saw it as well. Well, eventually, the two anomalous entities run behind a tree, and then they both disappear. You can, again, find this picture on the Loud and Weird West Virginia video. That's linked in the description if you guys want to go take a look at it. But I saw this kid post this picture in the Loud and Weird West Virginia Facebook group. And so I did see the original shot of it. Ron over there did say that he took a look at the EXIF data on the picture, and it does match up with the story. So like the date that the picture was taken, the time it was taken, it was taken from an iPhone 15. All of that seems to match up. So it doesn't seem like it was AI or Photoshop or anything like that. It does seem like a genuine picture. And the picture is weird. I wouldn't quite call that skeleton babies, but it is weird. So let's get into it.
Sure. I have so many questions. So, okay, first of all, like when you look at the photograph, you can see that it seemed to have been taken from some kind of elevated position. So
Right.
did they mention being on a hill
Probably.
or something?
They probably did, yeah. I guess I didn't do a good enough job getting that report, but yeah, they probably were.
Okay, because there are like power lines and shit in the way. So that's the first thing that I noticed. It's hard to tell because there is this watermark on here. So was that watermark part of the video? Did they re-release the photos with the watermark?
Yes, the photos are released with the watermark. The video itself, well, I believe so. I don't think the video had a watermark on it, so I think it's from the actual photo itself.
Okay, so there's a watermark on this photo, which I'm going to be quite honest, dear listeners, I am struggling with because I can't think of a reasonable, ethical reason to place a watermark on something like this. So I'm trying very hard to be open-minded and diplomatic in considering this. But I will tell you, in the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of things like this that have been sent to me, I have never once tried to claim ownership of a witness's evidence on behalf of myself or the Singular Fortean Society. I have always released that, published it with an article or something similar, making it freely available to anybody who wanted to examine it. And so it seems awfully strange to me that this watermark would appear on these photos that were first shared freely, but then taken down at the behest of the people who control this Facebook group, only to reappear with a watermark. And just so we're clear, there is one reason and one reason only that a watermark ever appears on anything, and that is to declare ownership of that image. That is their sole purpose. So if you look, I'm a huge nerd. I buy a lot of role-playing games and role-playing game PDFs sometimes, and those PDFs will be watermarked. And that is to ensure that your individual copy isn't spread around because it's traceable, right? I don't know if that actually prevents anything, but that's the purpose. If you see a little watermark there, you're like, okay, fine, whatever. It just strikes me as odd that a watermark would be placed on something that should be released for the good of the community, so it could be examined by other people in service of why we're all here, in service of scientific curiosity, in service of exploration. It just feels gross. So I don't want to say a whole lot more because I'm not really interested in starting a fight with anybody or pissing anybody off, but it's fucking fishy and it's weird. And if you got a bad feeling about it, well, so do I. So it's not just you. It's fucking weird. But it's also preventing us from properly examining these photos, because it's unclear where this photo was taken. Now, without the watermark, because the watermark almost looks like a reflection or something. So when I look at this, I go, okay, could this have been taken from like a window or something? Because it almost looks like from the elevation, like the angle, that it reminds me of a photograph taken from inside of a building. But it's difficult to discern any honest like reflections or anything that could be reflecting off of glass, because I got this big old fucking watermark right in the way. Now, beyond that, look, this was taken by a teenager, and there's supposedly other witnesses there. Now, I'm going to go way out on a limb here, and I'm going to assume no other witnesses other than this initial witness came forward or in any way corroborated any of this, as far as we know, right?
No, not yet.
Okay, shocking. Also, like, this is a teenager, right? So, look, I've got a nephew and 3 nieces, and they don't even take photographs because you know what they love? They love the TikTok. And it is so weird to me that you've got a teenager. If they really saw 2 skeleton babies or whatever dancing around in a cemetery, that they wouldn't have recorded like 3 minutes of it with their fucking reactions and the reactions of the people around them, so then they could share it on something like fucking TikTok or whatever, or just that wasn't their initial reaction to the situation, because that's what teenagers do now. You're familiar with teenagers,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, don't you have one?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, like that's what they fucking do.
Yeah.
So that's weird, because what we're left with is one image, a single image from an event
From one
that
witness.
with a single witness, of course, claiming other witnesses, but we're left with this one single photograph of an event that supposedly lasted for some time. Now, that's fucking suspicious, because if you had time to take one photograph, well, you had time to take a video. But even if we're being really charitable, like the most charitable we could be, you had time to take more than one fucking photograph.
Yeah.
So usually in these cases, what this represents is some kind of totally normal but momentarily weird looking thing that they just capture on camera, and they're like, hey, doesn't that kind of look like a skeleton toddler? Holy shit, it does. We should put it on the internet. Or it could even be something more deliberate where they're like, hey, we've got this fucking statue left over from Halloween, so obviously it can't move, so videoing it is like out of the question. And I don't really feel like posing it in multiple places or anything. So let's just put it in the park. We'll take one picture. And don't worry, my phone only has like 2 megapixels. So it's going to be a shitty picture and nobody's going to be able to tell anything. What's that?
Was that a dig at iPhones?
No, it's not a very high resolution photograph.
It's not.
All right. It is what it is.
I think
it's not a dig on iPhones.
I think it's because it's zoomed in. And when you look at the picture, and this is why it's important to be able to have access to the unaltered image. Now, that doesn't mean that the witness has to come forward and be public, even though they were initially doing that.
They already did.
Yeah. But either way, this is why it's important to have the original image so that we can actually analyze it together, so that as a community, and I would hope typically Ron and Joe are very, very, very good about the way that they handle this type of stuff. And so I'm hopeful that they will come out with the original image to offer that to everybody, to have the chance to do so. But one of the details I thought was interesting when you look at the picture, to me, it looks like it's very much zoomed in by a lot, and that's why it's so distorted. Because I have an iPhone, and even though I know now that the camera is not as good as the Samsung, it's not that bad either.
They're not that bad, no.
But if you zoom way in like that, yeah, it does get that bad. That's why your moon pictures are better than my moon pictures. It's just the way it is.
Fair.
But when I look at the picture, one of the things that it looks like to me, it looks like this. You see this like street light there. It's actually a security light. It looks like it's on. So it's either on or it's a weird glare coming from the sun. And could that create a humanoid shape? Or could that distort somebody who is in motion down there? Absolutely, it could.
Yes, I think that's very astute, and it's something to consider, because when I touched on this earlier in the broadest way possible by saying a totally normal thing that momentarily looks weird. So you get one photograph of it, you go, hey, that looks really fucking weird. Let's put it on the internet. So in this case, from the angle of the sun, it's entirely possible that is just a normal human being who is completely washed out due to the effect of like direct light, and combined with, again, like the relatively low resolution of this photograph. Like we see this a lot, and we see it a lot in everything from ghosts to UFOs to whatever, where you've got relatively low resolution photographs, whether it's because it's a shitty camera or, like you said, they're zoomed in on something. And let me tell you, they lead to some weird shit. Like when you look at this photograph in particular, when you look at the enlarged version of the object in question, again, not at all helped by this giant fucking watermark in the way. You can see that there's significant like blurring and blending with the background.
Yeah.
And so that very easily could indicate that this thing is completely washed out, and the camera is having difficulty focusing on it, like picking it up. And so it just looks weird because of this direct light on it. Like if it's getting hit directly with sunlight, again, could be a totally normal person just walking across this field, gets hit with sunlight, looks weird, is washed out. You get a single picture, they take another step, and the magic is fucking gone at that point. And that could be why we only have one photograph as well. So,
and it is also doing, I just want to point this out, it is very much doing the famous Patterson Gimlin pose, complete with what appears to be titties.
That's just how people walk, though, isn't it?
I mean, I guess so, but doesn't that look like it's turned back to you with its titties hanging out? Because that's what it looks like to me.
I what's funny when you mentioned that, initially I thought that this could be a person in like basically I was like, is that just a white lady in a bikini who's completely washed out because of bright sunlight? And that's seriously, and that's why it looks the way that it does.
It's just
So this is like a pervy teenager probably trying to get this lady on camera or something.
It's just another alt girl at the cemetery trying to do a sexy photo shoot, right? And fucking here's these teenagers taking pictures of her.
I think that we have fucking cracked this case wide open.
It could be. It's an interesting photo. It's one of the more in a world filled with red circles circling smoke and dust orbs and window glare. It's the most interesting photo I've seen in a while.
Yeah. It's just too bad that
there's a lot wrong with it.
What we get instead of something that anybody could actually use.
Yeah, why not take video of it? I would.
Why not just release the fucking photograph?
Just a regular photograph, right? At minimum. I would like to personally speak with the witness and see. I would ask that question. Why'd you take a video of it? Why did anybody there take a video of it?
Right.
and I'd like to know different factors, because again, to me, when I look at just the regular, not the regular picture, because we don't have the original, but the bigger non-blown up picture, it honestly looks like this was taken at night with flash. Like, I will be honest with you, like, as an iPhone owner, like, I know what that shit looks like, and it's zoomed in. That's what it looks like to me, and I have so many questions. I would like to look at the data myself on it and see what that data poses. And then, not that any witness owes me anything, but if I could talk to the witness, I'd love to. I think that'd be great.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
And, you're absolutely right. Look, I talk to a lot of witnesses. We both do. And I think that at this point, my track record speaks for itself, because I do believe very strongly in supporting witnesses and treating them with respect. None of which would change my opinion if I saw a flaw in presented evidence or a hole in somebody's story or anything else, because there is a gentle, professional, compassionate way to ask those questions and handle those situations. And that's what you have to do in situations like these. Because, well, hell, just recently I have received some photographic evidence, and I believe that it has prosaic explanations. And I know that can be difficult for witnesses to hear sometimes. And so the thing that I usually say is, look, even if this photograph turns out to be something totally normal, something mundane, then that doesn't disprove any of your experiences. Your experiences are still yours. But I do believe that these phenomena, as they exist, are difficult to impossible to capture on photograph, or, to record, basically. And so it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody if you're not able to do it. Now, in this case, I don't know. Things seem weird enough. It seems suspicious enough where I think that you've got to ask the right questions, again, in a professional, compassionate way, but be prepared to end up with something that could be just absolute falsehood.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I say to people. I mean, again, eyewitnesses to this stuff are just people. They're just regular people, and they don't owe anybody their stories or anything like that. But also, I would be terrible at my job if I didn't ask people the hard questions. And you have to ask them just like I would be terrible at my job if somebody asked me the hard questions about Mothman. And if I can't answer them, or at least try to come up with some type of explanation in some type of way, then maybe I need to take a step back and look at my information and, get better information. I mean, that's just a part of it. And there's nothing wrong with asking those questions, especially if you're going to take the role on as a researcher, as an investigator, and start talking to these people. You can't be afraid to challenge what they're saying in a respectful way.
Of course. Yeah. And it's always been my experience that the most credible witnesses are not offended by that. It's usually only somebody who has something to hide who is unwilling to answer questions. Legitimate, credible witnesses, they will answer your questions. They want to talk about their experiences, but more importantly, they want to try to understand them. And so if you explain it to them in the way that, well, hey, look, we have to be able to rule all this stuff out before we can even begin to examine this as a paranormal phenomenon. I have yet to meet a credible person who has an issue with that. They just, of course not. They know that something that they can't explain happened to them, and they want to try to understand it. And so they are willing to go through a credible process to try to do so. And anybody who isn't probably is just, is just making shit up, to put it frankly. So
I was going to put it nicer, but you did a good job.
Thanks.
Just making shit up. Yeah, you're right. Not saying that this witness is doing, or this experience or whatever.
No, I
this
don't know this
person's doing
person.
that.
Yeah,
Right. Tobias,
idea.
neither Tobias nor I have talked to this person directly. I just want to put that out there. We don't know, but we're just analyzing, right? This is the information we were given. So we're just kind of, going based off of what we think about it. I cannot tell you what's in that picture for sure.
Right.
You know?
No, it's a blurry nothing.
Right.
I will say this though. Yes, you're right. We have not spoken to this witness, but where you are most correct here is when you say we are just working off of the evidence and information that we have been provided.
Correct.
And the evidence that we have been provided fucking sucks.
Yep.
And it sucks because the way it has been presented is not a way that is conducive to legitimate research and investigation.
Like I said, I hope that, the original image will become available eventually, and then maybe we can do some more on it. At the end of the day, I guess, doesn't matter, because even if we had the original, we could probably make a better assessment of the picture, but we still can't tell you what's in it.
Sure. Yeah, it would still be the same blurry nothing, probably.
Yeah, I wasn't there, unless that's me. That's me in the picture. That's what it is.
Is that you?
Yeah, that was there. Yeah.
Were you walking through a park in a bikini any time recently?
I was the alt girl at the cemetery taking pictures. I've done it before.
Well, there you go.
So.
Problem solved.
It was just me. Anyway, that's my news for the week.
Excellent newsing. Yeah, I've probably pissed off enough people at this point, but no reason to stop now.
Yeah, keep going.
I don't think this news is going to irritate anybody, but there's still plenty of podcasts left. So the news I have is about some filmmakers who claim to have captured some footage of Champ on camera while making a movie about a monster in Lake Champlain. So, according to an August 11th press release from Eternal Grace Church, filmmakers Richard Rossi, I hope I'm saying that right, Richard, and Kelly Tabor may have unintentionally captured drone footage of Champ, the lake monster said to inhabit Lake Champlain, while shooting their film Lucy and the Lake Monster. On their website, Eternal Grace Church is described as a spiritual community supporting actors, filmmakers, artists, writers, and musicians in their creative journey of grace. The press release stated that longtime friends Rossi and Tabor were reviewing footage when they noticed a large unknown creature gliding beneath the water's surface near a boat used in the film. Tabor, and I hope I'm saying that right too. I should have mentioned that earlier. I picked a pronunciation and I'm going with it. Tabor, whom the release lists as a true believer, grew up interested in the lake monster, while Rossi is said to be a doubting Thomas who wants verification from scientists. A 10-second clip featuring the mysterious object was published to Rossi's YouTube channel over a week prior to the press release. In that footage, the object can be seen below the water's surface in the lower right-hand corner of the frame. Okay, so they go on basically to talk about how they saw this mysterious object while reviewing footage for their film. And the film they're making is not a documentary. It is a work of fiction about a little girl and her grandfather looking for Champ in Lake Champlain. I'm sure it is very heartwarming, probably nice little family movie. So they go on to talk about that and basically say that, the footage was not tampered with in any way, nothing like that. And if you look at this footage, it doesn't look altered. It doesn't look like anybody has done anything to it. They released about a 10-second clip to YouTube. And then after that first press release, there was another one that was released just this past August 14th. And I'm not going to go through too much of that one because it is the relevant section is pretty long and I'm not going to read it verbatim. But you're welcome to find this article that I wrote for the Singular Fortean Society and read it for yourself, or I'll post it on Wednesdays. We Talk Weird's social media later this week. But that talks about the early scientific investigation into the footage. And so They've got, how are they described? So Rossi describes these scientists as trained scientists with a minimum of one earned doctorate degree in science. So cool. And for whatever reason, they take the 1977 Sandra Mancy photograph, right? And they compare this to that. And I tell me if I'm taking crazy pills here, but it just felt to me like they just kind of try to poke holes in the Mancy photograph the whole time to point out why this footage is so much better than that. And I thought that was such an unusual way for them to try to establish the credibility of this footage by just trying to make something else seem not as credible. Like, what's a good example? So, this is great. So they say the original Mancy Polaroid depicts the Champ entity in relatively shallow waters, not exceeding depths of 14 feet in proximity to the shoreline. In contrast, the Tabor Rossi footage was captured via drone technology in the deepest section of Bulwaga Bay within Lake Champlain, effectively eliminating the likelihood of misidentification as a rock formation or sand mounds, which are prevalent in shallower aquatic regions. And I'm just like, okay, like, how is the Mancy Polaroid and the depth of water it was taken in relevant to what you're then saying? Like, you could have just said, we took this in really deep water, so it's not a rock, so we don't think it's a rock formation or sand mounds. You didn't have to just be like, and Sandra Mancy's fucking photograph is only in 14 fucking feet of water, which means it fucking sucks, and if you like it, you're stupid. Like, what the hell, guys? And I don't know if that's their intention, but like, as I was reading through that, I was just like, this just seems, I don't know, it felt weird. And it just kind of seemed like they were picking on the Mancy photograph a little bit for some reason.
It's rude is what it is.
It just felt really, really, it felt rude kind of. And I almost feel bad about saying this because once I published this article, I got a fair amount of attention. And so the filmmakers shared our article and we're just like, oh, thanks Tobias and Emily for, covering this and it's important, for discussion and just really nice stuff. And I agreed with everything they said there because I think it is important for us to take this evidence and review it sans fucking watermark and open it up. I'm never going to let this go and open it up to as many people as possible for people, to have it reviewed by as many sets of eyeballs as we can to try to, discern what the reality of it is. And so I thought that was really nice of them to do. So I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's just really weird. And, I guess really too, when you're looking at the second press release, this must have come from the team of scientists. So maybe the team of scientists just have a bone to pick with the fucking Mancy photograph. I have no idea. I included the Mancy photograph in this article, by the way, if you're curious what that is. It's it's easily the most popular photograph of Champ, one of the most popular lake monster photographs in the world. You'll recognize it if you're into this stuff. So in contrast to what the second press release was saying, though, Katie Elizabeth reached out to Coast AM to share her thoughts on the footage. So she is a Champ researcher who has been researching Champ for quite some time.
Yeah, she's like the person.
Yeah. So absolutely. And so this happened to take place in an area, by her estimation, that she was relatively familiar with. And so she told Coast to Coast, and this is a direct quote, during my many drone deployments in this area, it is evident that there are a few large rocks and sand mounds in this location, which are visible just below the surface of the water. And so what she's talking about is basically directly refuting the claim that this was taken in water so deep that there couldn't be any underwater rock formations or sand mounds. She's saying, no, I know this area, and it is entirely possible that is the case. I don't know Lake Champlain, so I can't tell you if either one of these folks is right or not. But they both seem to have, well, they have contrary opinions. So take that for what you will. Obviously, people are going to say that it's suspicious that they happen to catch this object when they're promoting a film about Champ, and I don't blame anybody for saying that. But yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, what do you think?
That was going to be my go-to, right? Oh, these people making a movie about Champ that's fictional just so happened to catch footage of Champ. How weird.
But don't people say that about the Patterson-Gimlin film all the time?
They do. So that was going to be where I was going to go with that.
Oh, okay.
So they're filming, on this lake that happens to have many eyewitness accounts of having a monster.
Right.
Champ is probably it's probably America's most popular lake monster. Is most well-known lake monster. If you go to that area, everybody there either has a story themselves or knows somebody that does about Champ. So it's, if we take those sightings as fact, then obviously there's a lot of sightings of this thing out there, right? So who's going to catch evidence of this thing better than somebody who has a camera on it more so than other people do,
Sure.
I don't think that is a huge jump. That isn't crazy or wild to me. As far as like the footage itself, first of all, a great shot, man. That footage is beautiful. It looks really nice. I need one of those. But I didn't immediately notice what they're talking about in the video itself. Like I had to see the still of it in order to really notice what was going on. But maybe that's just me. So, and I still kind of struggle with it in motion even. It just doesn't really look like it's doing anything. Like I don't.
That's a good point. I also thought that it looked like it could be a stationary object,
right,
with the illusion of motion due to the movement of the water.
Yeah, I didn't really. I'm not saying that's because it's not Champ and it's obviously rocks. I don't know. I've never been to Lake Champlain before. I don't know what it looks like. Right. But. I do also find it weird that this has trudged up the Mancy photo and has kind of had taken an opportunity to dig at it. Don't we? Isn't like one of the big controversies of the Mancy photograph is that we don't know where it was taken. Like,
boy,
I
don't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like that's the thing about it is like they had driven Sandra Mancy out there. She couldn't remember where it was taken. There's some people that, claim to know just from pure, pointing a camera at the area and going, well, that looks like it matches kind of. But I'm pretty sure it's like a lost location. So how do we know how deep the water was in the area if we don't even know where the fuck it was? Just saying.
Great question.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for it.
That's one of those weird topics that I probably know a little too much about, but it comes in handy in these types of discussions. So,
sure,
and
absolutely.
I'm like 99% sure that that's the case. It's a lost location. Who knows what it is? Could it be Champ? I guess so, but there's just not enough to. I mean, why didn't it? It was so close to the surface. Why didn't it just surface? Why is there nothing else? Why didn't it swim off? Why did it get so close to the person? That's kind of weird. What's the deal with that? It's not like we feed these things, so it likes us.
Yeah, right.
I have a lot of questions about it. It does seem opportunistic to take it and run with it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's not.
Sure.
We do that, I mean, I get it. I have a podcast. I understand marketing. I don't think that it's something that they have purposefully taken and hoaxed. I think that this is, again, it's a good opportunity for their film. It's a good opportunity to get the word out there. And like they even thanked you for starting a discussion.
Yes.
I think that's reasonable, and I think it's okay to lean one way or the other with this. I think it's fine to go, no, it's just a rock. I think it's fine to go, it's some other wildlife. And I think it's fine to go, I believe that's Champ. So I have no opinion.
If you zoom way in on it, like I'm just noticing this. If you zoom way in, it actually kind of looks like 4 or 5 skeleton babies, and they're doing synchronized swimming.
Yes. But is there a watermark? That's what I need to know.
Well, it's hard to tell because of the giant watermark in the way, which is ironic because it's a picture of water. But
so there's a couple, you're saying. So I do want to make something very, very, very clear before it goes way out of hands. I respect Ron and Joe very much. Tobias has never worked with them. Tobias, you don't know them, right? Personally.
I do not.
I respect the hell out of what they do. I think that they're great, credible researchers, and I want to say that I am a little disappointed in the watermark photo. But again, in my heart of hearts, I think they'll do the right thing and release it to everybody. So again, before people go off in the rumor mill, I'm just going to say I love Ron and Joe. We're besties. It's fine. Be nice to them too.
I have a lot of questions, but I don't know them. It's true. Like the fact that, look, I've been in this field for a while now. And I think that ethics are all we have. Seriously. It's all we have, because there isn't enough evidence of anything else to give us any credibility. And so it's all about who you are in terms of how you carry yourself, how you treat people, how open and honest you are. And the fact that you're willing to vouch for them says a lot. I'm just saying look, I don't know. They probably don't listen to this podcast. Maybe they do. If they do, I don't have a problem with them personally. I don't know them. It just really rubs me the wrong way to see supposed evidence obscured with watermarks, because that is only something you use for commercial property. And evidence in this field should never be considered commercial property, because once you've done that, once you cross that line, there's no going back, and your credibility is tarnished forever. So really think hard about who you want to be and the legacy you want to leave behind before you start the commodification of paranormal evidence. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. And I'll say that's really out of character for them to do something like that. So I'm hoping that there is some super silly explanation for all of it, and where it's totally wrong, and we'll get egg on our face. That's what I hope. I can't say that that'll
be great.
happen.
I would love that.
But yes, that'd be great. So anyway, like I said, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not making it a big deal. It doesn't need to be a big deal. I still love them very much. And unless they really go off the deep ends, my loyalty is unfathomable. So there's that. It's not unfathomable, but it's pretty great. Anyway,
sure.
But it is kind of, the contrast of it is kind of hilarious. We've got this movie studio that doesn't have a watermark in their images. Okay, I'm just saying.
I know. It's not useful. It's not a good look. It's not even something you see all that often, Yeah. It's more like the kind of thing I would expect out of somebody trying to be the next. I shouldn't say it. I'm not going to finish that sentence. It's something you see out of a lot of smaller paranormal groups and stuff. I think who are sort of trying to make a name for themselves. And they are very obviously and actively seeking the commodification of the paranormal and any associated evidence. And that's fine. That's who they are. But for this group specifically, based on what you said, that you're right. It seems weird, and hopefully there's a totally rational explanation that will make perfect sense. And I look forward to issuing an apology later when that comes to light.
Will you... I'm not going to go that far. I was going to say, if there's some perfectly reasonable explanation, will you at the Mothman Festival let one of them crack an egg onto your face?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
Okay, fair enough. It's so hot out there, it will cook.
Right.
That
Also,
will
I
be
am
fine.
not wrong in any way. Like based on the
That's true.
available evidence,
Yeah,
I am
that's fair.
completely right.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, we need new evidence, and then I will change my opinion based on new evidence because that's what honest people do.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, if new evidence doesn't come to light, then you get to crack an egg on their face.
No, I'll probably just be nice to them anyway because
I'm
that's who
just
I
trying to
am.
make some shtick out of this, okay? I like some shtick.
Never. I'll take it all weirdly seriously.
I'm bringing a couple of cream pies, and I'm cream pieing all of you.
Do it. Oh, wait, hold on.
You know what you just did. It's
God damn it.
y'all getting cream pied.
Yeah. So hopefully Nate got that.
Our trailer for the show is going to be like 20 minutes long eventually.
All dick jokes.
All dick jokes. Anyway, in Pure on Wednesdays, we talk weird fashion. An hour and 10 minutes into the show, you want to talk about what we came here for?
Sure. I could find something to get mad about with this too. It'll be fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Of course. So like I said earlier, we're going to talk to you guys about little metallic men. And before I get into it, we're going to do timeline style, right? Because that's what we do here. Tobias, what's your history with the Kelly-Hopkinsville Incident?
Oh boy, this is one of my favorite experiences that has ever been recorded. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I first read about it because it's just scary enough without being too scary for me to be able to handle as like a 9-year-old. It's not like trying to read Communion and just freaking out.
Yeah.
Because there are these little monster guys and they're doing stuff, but they don't actually hurt anybody. And they're really kind of comical if you think about it. Like just the image of them, like flipping over when they get shot. It sounds like a cartoon, right? So yeah, I've loved this story for most of my life. I actually have a piece of Kelly-Hopkinsville Goblin history. My friend and fellow, Fortean researcher, author, investigator, Joshua Cutchin was in that area, and I saw him at Nashville. We were there for Strange Realities last year. And he gave me a rock from the actual site. And he even wrote it was like Kelly and then like the year. I forget when he grabbed it. I'd have to go look at it. But so I have a rock from the site where this happened, thanks to the inimitable Mr. Cutchin.
Hold on, something weird is happening in my house.
Like paranormal weird, or
I hope so. It's like a weird static noise coming from my dining room area. So strange.
it's like an audio watermark almost.
It is. There's a big watermark right across the whole room. I don't know. It is very strange actually. Both of my cats are like freaking out, like they hear it.
Oh boy, it's not like an electrical sound, is it?
It kind of sounds like, when there's like a bug that's like buzzing and it's like hitting up against the light. It sounds like that, but I don't think it's.
Well, it could be a bug.
That. It could be. It's over now. That was really weird.
Huh.
Okay.
Probably Mothman. Maybe a goblin. I don't know.
It might have been both a Mothman and a goblin walk into my dining room.
Goblin riding Mothman into your light repeatedly.
That was really strange. Well, I also live in an apartment, and weird noises happen all the time. So who the fuck knows? But anyway, on with the show. That was very odd. I just didn't want to leave you hanging in the silence. I'm like trying to listen. I'm like, what's happening? Am I having a
Sure,
stroke?
yeah. I was just like, did your internet go out? Okay.
We're professionals. Anyway, Tobias, what you said about this encounter is exactly, I think, what most people say about it. It's their favorite. This is certainly a fan favorite. This isn't the first time I will be talking about this on this show. I've actually probably talked about it, just as its own episode. This is the third time now. And just in reference, oh God, who knows? It's very popular. But I haven't talked about it with you. So
Okay.
I think that it is worth revisiting. I think it's a story that people don't get sick of hearing about, and I don't get sick of talking about it, just if I'm honest. And also, if you're listening to this on the correct day, on Wednesday, it is the anniversary of this event. Can you believe that? 20,
Yay.
not 20.
Happy Goblin Day to all who celebrate.
70-something years?
1955.
79
Oh, don't make me do
years?
math.
Is that 79
That would
years?
Wait, is that 69 years?
69 years?
69 years.
I think it's... Is it? Damn it. No.
Well, wait, because, okay, so this is...
out.
All right, this is how dumb I am, everybody. We're going to walk through this math. So, okay, 1955 was... Okay, so 1945 is 45 years before 2000, right? Because 55 and 45 add up to 100. Yes?
Yep.
So we've got 45, and it's 2024 now. So you 45
69.
and 24 is 69.
Nice.
Yeah, we did it.
Very nice. Of course.
High five.
Of course, we're going to talk about this on the 69th anniversary. That's just the way it goes. Totally on purpose. Totally planned that one. But yeah, it's definitely a fan favorite. People love it. They've got their own fucking festival. You know it's popular when it's got its own fucking festival, So,
Right.
I guess.
How big is that festival? Have you ever seen it? Have you ever
I've
been?
never been. I've heard good things, but honestly, I don't know if they do it anymore. Like, I feel like they did one post-pandemic, and I feel like maybe they haven't done anymore. So I don't know. If they haven't, they haven't invited me, so
Fair.
it can't be that important. So just saying, people that organize the festival. Anyway, so the Kelly-Hopkinsville Incident, the Kelly-Hopkinsville Encounter, the Kelly Little Green Men, the Kentucky Goblins. It's got a lot of different names, right? A lot of different monikers. I prefer referring to it as the Kelly-Hopkinsville Incident. I don't like calling them goblins.
Okay.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. Well, I guess I'll give the short version right now, because there's just no evidence at all that they came from the earth, and that's kind of the implication, is that they live in the caves there, and that's where they came from, and there's just no evidence for that. Just doesn't feel good.
No, that's totally fair. So it's the connotation of the word goblin in folklore that is the issue, and I could totally see that because
they're made of metal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't fit
it's a
goblin.
It's a flying saucer occupant encounter from the 50s. It's not magical fucking goblins from Narnia. I get it.
It's not the same. But like I said, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later on when we talk about the state of these beings in modern day. So, August 21st, 1955, this event happened between August 21st and August 22nd. I did not take down everybody's name that was witness to this event.
So many.
But a matriarch by the name of Glennie Lankford had a little get together at her house, pretty much. She, first of all, had a lot of people living in the home, and then she also had one of her sons was a carny who was kind of back home off season, and he had some friends over as well as their kids. I'm going to go ahead and say, here's your main players. We've got Glennie Lankford, we've got Billy Ray Taylor, and we have quote unquote Lucky Sutton. Okay,
Elmer Lucky Sutton. He has the best name.
There's a reason why he goes by Lucky, and I don't blame him.
Saying Elmer's a cool name.
Elmer Glue Sniffin' Lucky Sutton. I'm just kidding.
Aw.
I had to make it worse.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, Lucky is, you'll always hear him referred to as Lucky.
Lucky. Lucky is Glennie's son, and Billy Ray Taylor is friend of the family. But there were probably about a dozen people that were there. And I say probably about a dozen people because let me tell you guys something. Every time I read about this story anywhere, that number changes. That mixture of people changes.
It's difficult. Like, I wrote an article about this for our website like 7 years ago. And there were conflicting accounts of who was there. And thinking back, just using like the accounts I could find from that time, from like mostly newspaper accounts, like what I ended up with was Elmer Lucky Sutton had brought his wife, Vera, and friends Billy Ray and June Taylor with him to visit Glennie Langford, who at that time would have 3 younger half-siblings of his living at the family farmhouse. And then also present were his brother JC, sister-in-law Aileen, and family friend OP. Or
Nice.
Opie, probably.
Opie.
Like Opie, like the
Yeah.
Andy Griffith show. Opie.
Yeah. Gotcha. So how many is that in your
Oh
account?
boy. Let's see. So that is a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10. That's like 11.
So about a dozen. Yeah. Some accounts will have like 5 adults, 7 kids. Some will have 3 adults, 8 kids. You know, it just depends on what you're reading and where you're reading it from.
Right.
Either way, it's at least 10 people in this area. And again, they're not there for no reason at all. They're all kind of gathered again because if you know anything, Tobias, you know anything about carnies?
Kind of. I worked at a carnival, like a traveling carnival, for like a week, probably 25 years ago.
Yeah, they're interesting. They're an interesting bunch. My ex-husband was a carny. And like I said, they're an interesting bunch. And typically they are very nomadic. They live on these big trailer trucks and these little teeny tiny dorms that are about the size of a jail cell. And they will often just travel during the carnival season. Now, you do have some carnies that do work larger carnivals that travel year round. But they'll kind of, come and go. So like during the winter months, in the Midwest, right? And I'm in Ohio. I'm right next to Kentucky, so we've got similar weather. Usually they'll kind of come home for the season. They make a lot of money and they don't pay any rent while they're out on the road. So therefore they have this chunk of money to give you to stay at the house. So anyway, that all checks out. That all makes sense. But who knows if they were passing through or if they were just visiting or they were home for the season. We don't know. It doesn't really matter. Carnival folk are not... they can be dishonest people. I'll say that up front. Again, it's a lot of nomads. It's a lot of people that don't have a lot of stability. Many people, some of them might have drug issues or just addiction issues in general, depending on what it is. But there really would be no reason at all for them to come up with a story like this. So that's where that part is going for me.
Yes.
Could they come stay at your house for a couple of months and rob you blind? Absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go running to the police with a story about aliens. It doesn't usually happen.
Well, you're going to see a lot of classism,
Yes,
and that kind of bigotry in this story.
you will.
In the approach that quote unquote skeptics take to try to dismiss it.
Yeah.
It's not particularly relevant to this story that, Elmer and his wife and their friends happen to work at a traveling carnival. It's not.
No.
It doesn't speak to their credibility. It doesn't influence the way that they react to the phenomenon. They're just people like anybody else. And then of course they happen to be rural. This is an active working farm that Glennie Langford lives on. They're actually, at the time, they were working on purchasing it. But not terribly educated people. So you're going to see a lot of that. I've seen it estimated that probably there wasn't anybody there who had made it past like grade school in terms of like formal education. And if you think that's a problem, eat shit, because, I have some farmers in my family, and in mid-century America, a lot of times you didn't finish school because you had fucking work to do. And
You don't
a lot
need
of
to.
people,
Yeah.
a lot of people live very comfortable lives where they don't understand that reality for people 75 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was what it was. So it didn't make them, doesn't mean they're stupid. Doesn't mean that they're incapable of understanding what the fuck they're looking at in their own environment in which they live day in and day out.
Right.
But that is that's the kind of stuff we're going to see over and over in this case.
Well, in 1950s, carnival circuit very much, I'm sure, was a lot different than 2010's carnival circuit, with different people. And if anything, even if they were stereotypical carnies, the last people that they're going to run to for help with anything is going to be the police.
Fair.
So, that pendulum can swing either way. So let's get on with it.
Sure.
So what is going on that evening? Well, they're all hanging out, just enjoying each other's time. Billy Ray goes out to fetch a pail of water at the well, and I tried to deadpan it, I couldn't. But he goes out.
They did not have internal plumbing.
No, they didn't, which was pretty typical for 1955 rural Kentucky.
Sure. My grandparents had a well outside, a working well outside that you could go get water from, because there was a time that there would not have been internal plumbing in their house. My mom, when she was a little kid, grew up using an outhouse.
Yep.
So again, that's why I get real riled up about the kind of classism that gets applied to this case all the time, because it's very personal to me.
That's okay. You're allowed to speak your truth.
Right. I just always find something to get mad about, though. I'm just people say men aren't emotional. I am so fucking emotional.
Have you met Tobias Whalen?
Yeah. Like kidding. Anger is an emotion. But it's not just that. We really, really are. It's fine. Everybody is, but me in particular.
Well, and I give you shit for it, but most of the time, I'd say so far you've been right. So it's well, shit, you've thought out these emotions. You know what I mean? You've pondered them.
I try to manage it. Yeah.
You kind of know what you're talking about. Anyway, our personal Men in Black Nate's kind of speaking up a little bit about a cabin that they own that also doesn't have internal plumbing. And, I in researching this topic and just trying to find out the general culture, because I wasn't alive in 1955 and I don't live in Kentucky, but in trying to figure out the general culture, there's some areas over there that only just now got city water. I mean, real plumbing 10 years ago. And I know some people don't get that unless you get it. You don't know if you don't know. Anyway. So Billy Ray goes out to the well, and while he is out there in the well, something amazing happens. He sees a sight that not all of us will get to see, especially in the way that he saw it. And of course, he could not wait to tell the family what he just experienced. So he runs inside the house real quick and tells everybody, "Y'all, I just saw a flying disc." And it had an exhaust on it that was all different colors of the rainbow. Now, the family just kind of laughs it off. They're just like, okay, Billy. They thought he was just joshing. Right. They thought he was playing a joke, and he's like, "No, for real, y'all. That's what I seen." And they weren't having any of it. But this kind of talk, this kind of dies down. And then about half an hour later, things get strange. About 30 minutes after Billy Ray claims that he saw this anomalous flying disc in the sky, the family dog starts freaking out. It just starts really throwing a fit. It's barking. It ends up hiding underneath the porch outside. And so Lucky, Elmer, and Billy go out to investigate kind of what's going on. And when they went out the back door to see what all the commotion was about, they saw a strange glow in the field behind the house that was kind of slowly approaching the farmhouse. So, while they're sitting there waiting for what comes next, a strange creature makes its way out of the field there and into view, and it is very strange. They describe this creature as about 3.5 feet tall with a round head. It had large yellow glowing eyes. It had very long arms that almost touched the ground. They were so long. And on the end of those long arms, they had weird clawed type hands, like large talons at the end of their hands. But strange of all, I think, the strangest detail is that it seemed to be made entirely of metal, which is a detail that not enough people talk about.
You can't see it right now, but I am just grinning like ear to ear, just being reminded of the description of these little gray men and their giant yellow eyes. And then when you look at, and we'll talk about these illustrations later, but then you look at the illustrations, they have these like big goofy ears, and it's just the best. Like, I would love for these dudes to just show up at my house. I'd be like, come on in, like, what do you want? Can we go on adventures? You guys seem great. Just the best.
Yeah. They look like a lot of fun. Oh yeah.
They do.
It kind of reminds me of the I mean, I don't know why, I guess, but the alien in Flintstones, what's his name? Kazoo?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. I don't know if it's the floating or the implication of green that never was there. But I don't, for whatever reason, like, I just imagine that in real life. Oh, like the terrible live action Flintstones movie.
I forgot that existed until just now.
I think it was the sequel even. So it was the bad one, I like the first one, John Goodman. Oh man,
yeah.
And Rick Moranis. That's a good movie. Anyway, kind of reminds me of that. I don't know why. But the metallic appearance doesn't really. Nobody talks about that, and God damn it, it's so important. And we'll get more into why. But Jesus, it's made of metal, folks. Right. It's metal. Anyway.
That's what it looked like, and you're right. And if you hear it mentioned at all, it's people saying something like, "Oh, it looked like they might have been wearing like shiny metallic suits," and it's like, no, dude. No. They talk about the entirety, like their heads are covered in this in this metallic substance, right? Like it's all of them. Like it's every part of their body.
Yeah. And it's something that gets overlooked. Another creature that comes to mind when we talk about it being made of all metal, the Flatwoods Monster was also that, like, almost completely made of metal. There's others, the Pascagoula abduction had weird metal thing. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But I'm just saying, metal, remember, it's super metal, right? So anyway, this creature comes out of the field and it is walking towards the two men with, arms raised. Now the men, of course, because they are Kentuckians and they know what they're doing, had grabbed a couple of guns right before that point. Tobias, you were kind of talking about the guns before we recorded. Do you want to tell them do you want to tell us their arsenal or what we believe?
Oh, sure. Well, they from the reports that I read, there was for sure this 20 gauge shotgun. And then there was a 22 caliber either. Now, I think the most credible reports have this listed as a 22 caliber rifle, but I've seen it listed as a 22 caliber target pistol too. I'm looking at the article that I wrote 7 years ago, and I have 22 caliber target pistol in this article. And I think that's probably because I saw that reported in a contemporary news source from when this happened. Either way, there's a 20 gauge shotgun and then this 22 caliber firearm as well. Like a 22 caliber anything. I mean, that's a varmint gun. Like you might use that to hunt squirrels or something, but it's not. If it's the only thing you've got, fine. But it's not the first thing I would reach for if I felt like my family was in danger from space invaders. Like that always struck me as weird. I was like, really, 22, dude? Like that's the best. That's the best we can field in defense of the Earth is a 22 caliber fucking firearm. Anyway, but and then the 20 gauge shotgun, which is also that's not the biggest fucking shotgun you can get either. So, yeah, they did their best.
That's probably just what they had around the house because, again, these are farmers.
Right, yeah.
They don't need military-grade weapons, typically.
Damn it, this is America. Everybody needs military-grade weapons.
If this happened in 2024, they would have.
Yeah, right?
We know that.
Filled those little fuckers with 10-millimeter rounds so fast.
we would have had bodies at this point.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, so they had, you know, a little bit of an arsenal there. And so they of course both grabbed one apiece. And while this thing approached with its arms raised, well, they shot at it. And okay, so
You shouldn't shoot at people with their arm. Like, if they have their hands up, isn't that surrender?
It's yes. You would think so. But they took it as, we're going to shoot you anyway. We don't know what the fuck this is, which is also an okay stance, I suppose. You know, if you're in a horror movie. But what happens next after they shoot at this thing? Which probably caused a lot of confusion. They didn't know if they hit it. They weren't really sure what was going on. It proceeded to do a backflip and then scurried off into the woods, very much like you said, Tobias, cartoon style. It kind of reminds me, when they shoot at these things, it makes me think of that scene from The Mask. You know, Jim Carrey's The Mask, where he starts bouncing around and shit all goofy while they're shooting at him.
Yes.
And then they actually did hit him a bunch of times, but he's the mask, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah. I picture this thing like, okay, if you've ever played foosball, I picture this thing spinning backwards, like it's a foosball player being spun on that rod, and then just like scurrying away. Oh, also, multiple times when they would shoot at these things, they reported hearing metallic sounds, like they were hitting something metallic.
Yep, it sounded like they described it as if you were to shoot into a metal bucket.
Yeah.
And
so that's weird.
That ping. So this one, fucks off into the night. Well, they kind of stand out there on the porch for about a good 20 minutes waiting for it to come back or something to happen, and nothing really happens. So they go back inside, and as soon as they go back inside, there is a weird glow coming from the side window of the property, and they look, and there's one of those fuckers staring into the window.
Oh, pervert.
Right. Just peeping away into the window. Well, they go ahead and shoot that little fucker right at point blank range, right through the window. Shoot right through the window. And it goes off somewhere. Now, they're assuming that they have a body now, right? They just shot this fucking thing in the face. There's got to be a body out here. It's 3 feet tall. They both start running outside, and when they get outside, Billy Ray had kind of taken a pause on the porch right underneath the overhang there of the porch. And while he's kind of waiting for Lucky to catch up, one of these little fuckers reaches down and grabs his hair. Well,
this is my favorite part.
I don't know if he grabs the hair. I don't know if he pets him. I don't think they really said, but
depends on who you ask. But the reason I love this part so much is because there is this illustration, and I forget what the fuck book it was in, but I remember from when I was a little kid, and it was my phone background for like 3 years when I rediscovered it as a grown up. But it's like of one of these things pulling his hair.
Yeah.
And he's got like this super shocked expression, but then also his neck is weirdly unnaturally long. It's a really fucked up drawing, but like it's iconic. Like if you're familiar with this case and you have read about this in like multiple books, I'm sure you've seen it. And it's just the best fucking thing. But also the idea that like he walked, and this is straight out of a horror movie, right? He walks out onto the porch, and then you can just picture like he's looking around and the camera's like super tight on him. And then it like pulls back a little bit and you see this hand coming down from above that he doesn't notice until it's got him by the hair. So good.
It reminds me of like they stepped out of their typical cozy farmhouse and they've walked into the Evil Dead 2 cabin.
Pretty much.
Is what it feels like. So this thing reaches down and he either pulls the hair or he pets the hair. It doesn't matter. It touches him.
It just gently caresses his hair.
He just starts petting him. Like, well, first they were trying to be peaceful. Why not continue that? Kill him with kindness.
Right. So that's when the goblin kind of leaned over and just kissed him lightly on his forehead.
Just gave him a little kiss. Yeah. Well, the whole family freaks the fuck out about this. So they start pulling Billy Ray in. And while they're pulling Billy Ray back into the house, Lucky is charging out of the door and immediately jumps off the roof and turns around and shoots this thing. And, they also notice Billy Ray kind of gathers himself from that point, and they notice another one in the tree right there in front of the house that's hanging out, and they both start shooting at it. and it didn't. They hit it. Where presumably they are hitting these things. They're hearing the bullets ping off of them.
Yeah.
So they hit it, and the report says it floated to the ground
Yes.
and then took off and back into the woods. And that's kind of what they're doing. Is
Yeah.
like they'll get hit and they'll kind of like, I don't know if they're feigning that they've been hit. I don't know if they're just showing off, but they'll kind of regather themselves and then take back off into the woods and then come back and start being curious about the house.
Right. And it's important to remember, and I'm glad that you brought this up because it reminded me that throughout this, there have been two different sort of modes of movement that we've seen. So when the creature originally appeared, the way that it was walking with its hands in the air, kind of like waddling towards them on its weird little legs, is different than what would happen when they would run away. So when they would get shot and do the backflip, then supposedly they would lower their arms to the ground and then use their arms to be able to run like quickly away. And so it's similar when they get shot in the trees. Again, like you mentioned, like they would, I guess, reportedly be hit. Like you might hear the metallic sound or something, and they did respond to being shot, but they would just float down gently, get to the ground, and then like fucking chimp run away, which is just fascinating. You know, like it's so weird, and it's those kinds of details that give this case extra credibility to me, where I'm like, man, that's just so specific of a thing to make up if you were going to make something up. I have a hard time believing that this, whatever happened to these people, was something that they invented.
To get more specific about the details and about the way that these things walked, something else that's not really mentioned a lot is the family, the people were reporting that the legs were very stiff. Like they didn't actually bend. All of the movement came from the hips. So like how like when you're playing dolls as a kid and you have like your Barbie and she's walking, it's like that.
Yeah, that's why I was like I picture it like kind of a weird waddling.
So strange. Yeah. And so for whatever reason, it seemed that they weren't able to, they didn't get their sea legs yet. I don't know. They weren't able to really use their legs very well. And they did seem to have some type of potentially evolutionary purpose for having these strange long arms to kind of act as a quicker getaway system. Which, 4 legs are better than 2. So it would work. Anyway, another detail that is kind of looked over a lot is that, this metallic skin that they seem to have, or, whatever it was, their body, they reported a weird glow kind of coming off of it. And maybe that's just because, again, it's metal and in the heat of the moment. But one thing that they did mention was that every time they shot at these things and they hit them, the glow would brighten. So that's interesting. Almost kind of like they have like a weird force field type thing. Oh, it's kind of what I'm imagining around them. So that was odd. And again, it's just one of those details that get thrown out because people don't like the metal goblins. They like the terrestrial goblins, and I don't.
Right.
So.
I like the truth. I like authenticity, and I think that's the direction that you're headed in, and so I'm with you.
I mean, you're talking terrestrial goblins are cooler than fucking metallic beings that glow even more when they're hit with bullets? I don't think so.
Space goblins, way cooler. Well, no, and it's interesting too. Now that you're mentioning the glow, like they would report that when they were in the light, you couldn't see this glow, and so it was only when they were in the darkness. And the creatures didn't like the light, and they actively tried to avoid it. Yeah, which is also weird. But
super weird. Well, it could be the giant eyes that they have, and they didn't seem to have like pupils or anything. So I don't know. Maybe they're photosensitive, right? And then, of course, back to the floating. The floating wasn't just theatrics that they would put on when they're shot at. One of them reportedly floated from the top of the roof of the house all the way to one of the fences. So it did seem to be something that they kind of had control over.
Right.
So they kind of put up with this for about 4 hours. These things kind of reappearing, them shooting at them running into the house, and Glennie kind of speaks up and she's like, look, we can't deal with this shit anymore, we got to do something. And so they all gather up, split between 2 cars, and head down to the police station. Before I go any further, did I miss anything about that initial bit that you want to add in there?
I know. Well, I guess there are 2 things. The first thing is, I mean, you're right at about 4 hours. Like, the reality is we don't have a comprehensive timeline.
Yeah.
Because this report is pieced together from multiple people's testimony, and nobody was keeping track of when things happened. It was just afterwards. They're like, I think it was around this time, or I think it was around that time. And then the only other thing is, I think we touched on this, but it's interesting to hear Glennie Langford's testimony afterward, because there was a period of time. So for about the first half of this thing, when Lucky and Billy Ray are running around outside shooting at shit, she talks about how the women were all inside just thinking that these guys are outside fucking goofing off. And they don't take it at all seriously. And it's not until, I want to say, Aileen went outside for something and saw one of them and came back in, and it was just like, holy shit, you guys, this is fucking real. That all of the women who assumed that these guys were just playing a prank or goofing off or whatever, suddenly were taking it seriously. And then at one point, Glennie herself goes over by the window and kind of ducks down, and she sees one of these things too. And at that point, it's like, holy shit, we got to get the fuck out of here. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. And so they do. Like I said, they all gather up together into the vehicle and they take off to the police station. Now, here's something to note: the police station isn't just right up around the corner. It's a half an hour away.
It's all the way in Hopkinsville.
It's right. It's you got to go in. You got to go there to go, for a purpose, for the most part,
Right.
And they all walk into the police station, and they pretty much tell the police basically what we just said, what all's been going on. I believe there is, people say that they did take measurements of their heart rates and blood pressure and things like that, and they were elevated. Some people use that as a gold standard of see, it really happened. I don't think that really means anything, to be honest with you. But that's me.
The one thing, and I know what you're talking about, and I think it was, I want to say Billy Ray's heart rate was elevated to 140 beats per minute or something, which is definitely elevated. It's not like we got to go to the hospital or anything, but it's, it's a decent cardio workout. And the one thing for me that stands out from that is it's easy to act like you're afraid. It is less easy to fake your heart rate. So if anything, that could be indicative of actual fear, regardless of what the source of that fear is. And we'll get into some of the skeptical explanations later. But regardless of what the source of that fear is, it seems unlikely that the fear was being manufactured. They were really frightened by something.
Yeah. It was, you could do a brisk run and you can get between a good 120 to 130 on your heart. You know what I mean? It's not impossible. I get what they were trying to do.
Sure.
And I commend them for trying to gather data, right? This is, because get everything that you can. But, aside from just the obvious, physical ailments that was kind of going on that kind of played into this, these people were terrified.
Yeah.
They were visibly very afraid. And at minimum, did the police think that they were being attacked by little metallic creatures? No, they didn't. But they were concerned that maybe there was an intruder of some sort that they were shooting at. Maybe this was a shootout between neighbors. They didn't know what was going on. They just knew that they had about a dozen people in their police station that were all visibly shaken up.
Yes.
So they go, okay, we'll come check it out. So the Hopkinsville police, the state police, and a photographer went down to the property to check out what was going on. And a couple of things to note: they didn't find the creatures. Okay, they did end up seeing the creatures. But like one thing that they did tend to find was this luminous patch where allegedly the creature that was shot out of the tree landed. And of course, the luminous patch to skeptics and probably even to police at the time is that this was just foxfire. For people that don't know what foxfire is, it is a glowing fungus. If you've ever seen anything glowing in the woods, there's a pretty good chance that it's foxfire.
Right. And this patch was like a foot and a half in diameter, I think.
Yeah.
So it wasn't enormous.
These people would know what foxfire is.
Yeah.
Just saying. Again, these are salt of the earth type of people. They would know. But that was kind of the only thing besides the bullet holes that were found in the property.
Right.
Where, like, obviously they were shooting from inside of the house, which is, you don't usually shoot up your own house with a dozen people in it.
Exactly. Well, and yeah, there were kids there, but yeah, there were bullet holes. There were shell casings. There were spent shotgun shells, So there was definitely plenty of evidence that firearms had been fired very recently at this location.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was like clearly some shooting that was going on, but without the actual creatures themselves showing up or anything else, the police were just kind of like, a funny bit that I kind of came across is that at one point while conducting this investigation, somebody had stepped on the tail of the cat. And when it yowled, right, because that's what cats do, you pissed it off, step on its tail. Someone said, quote, "You never saw so many pistols unholstered so fast in your life," because everybody was so on edge.
Yeah.
The family, obviously, and then of course the people investigating. But I mean, it was just a cat.
Of course they were. It's the middle of the damn night. You are investigating the wildest story you've ever heard in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's dark out there. It's dark as shit. It's scary. Even if you don't believe in it, there's going to be in the back of your mind this what if, So yeah, of course they were all on edge.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit more here soon about who exactly was there conducting the investigation.
There's all because I've got, I've had sources, and this made it into the article, talking about like the city police dispatching 4 officers to check the scene, who met with 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police from a nearby army base, all reportedly there investigating, this incident.
Yeah. So we'll get into that a little bit here. We'll just kind of go on with the timeline, and then we'll get into speculation.
Sure.
So the police don't find anything, essentially, right? They're just like, y'all need to go to bed. It's late. Everybody's tired. Go to bed. We're going to come back out tomorrow. We're going to do a little bit more investigating in the daylight because, like Tobias said, it's dark as shit. That's the direct quote. And we're going to try again tomorrow.
True.
So the family did go, okay, maybe it's over. Who knows what happened? Maybe we were making it up. I don't know. Let's go to bed. So while they're trying to go to bed and the police leave, Glennie is, hanging out. She's trying to get her sleep. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of her eye, that weird little glow pops up at the window again. And she looks over.
Space goblins.
And there he is, peeping Tom, space goblin, peeping through the window, trying to catch a good peep at old Glennie. Hands on the glass and everything, very, very comfortable, right? Really trying to get her attention. So what do? Well, of course, Lucky does what he knows best, and he shoots at it, and then nothing happened again.
Right. I should point out too. So all of these windows were open. And so they're not like shooting through their own window glass or anything. They're shooting through screens,
yeah,
which is not great for keeping insects out. But just in case you were wondering, Like, no, they're not. There's not just broken glass everywhere from them shooting through their fucking windows because it's just screens because it's hot as fuck.
It's August.
The middle. It's August in Kentucky, and they don't have air conditioning because they don't even have indoor plumbing. And
it's 1955, right?
And it's 1955, so I don't even think anybody had, like, most people did not have air conditioning.
Yeah.
It's they're shooting through screens.
Yeah. So, of course, this cat and mouse game continues on throughout the night. One would pop up, they'd try to shoot it again. This went on and on and on. The last creature seems to have made its final appearance around right around sunrise, right before sunrise, about 5:15 a.m. So they didn't get a lot of sleep that night. They were probably very grumpy, and I would be too, right? I'd be pissed.
Yeah,
motherfuckers. Keeping me all up all night. My God, you didn't even buy me dinner first, So, so the police come back in the morning. Of course, they search further, and they didn't find anything different than what they had already not found, right, or found. We're gonna look at it in the beginning. However, because of the photographer, probably because of the photographer on screen, which was really there on scene, they really were there to collect evidence. Word gets out to the press about this incident, and this story fucking blows all the way up. So reporters were actually coming down to the property from all over Kentucky, from Indiana, from Tennessee, to come talk about what's been going on. But it's not just that, people are talking about this. Word is spreading mostly, quickly through radio, because that is the popular form of information at the time. Mm-hmm. And, spectators start coming out to the property. And, if you guys have never personally talked to a person who has had an experience like this, has been the center of spectatorship, let me tell you, it's ugly. And the spectators are coming on the property. They're camping out there. Right? They want to catch a glimpse of these little creatures. They're just fucking straight up walking in and out of the Sutton farmhouse. And, they don't give a shit. They're being super rude. So
that is infuriating.
Can you imagine? Have you ever just had somebody walk in and out of your house before?
I can't imagine somebody doing that and surviving.
Right. You would shoot them.
What the fuck?
Right. It's just fucking rude. And like I said, camping outside their house. Can you imagine? You're just sitting inside. Even now, you're just chilling. You're watching your, Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs or whatever. Sure. And there's fucking 6 people camping out in your front yard that you don't know. What the fuck?
Just turn the hose on them.
That's a good idea. It usually works, right? Until they start pulling out the white t-shirts. Then you win. You got a white t-shirt contest.
Yeah, then I'm recording that shit. Hell yeah.
Putting it on the internet. Putting a watermark right on it.
Yeah, and get my watermark on there. See, that's an example of an appropriate thing to watermark. If that is something you have filmed for entertainment purposes that you wish to monetize, which makes sense because it's okay to monetize entertainment, then yes, slap a watermark on there. That's yours, dude.
But
you own that shit.
Right on it. Yeah. Anyway, so the family is getting frustrated. They're being made fun of. They're being made out to be some type of spectacle. Their privacy is being invaded. Again, you're talking about salt of the earth people. And even though they had a house full of 12 dozen people, they knew who these people were. It's not like they're typically having big neighborhood parties,
They live in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of motherfucking nowhere. Right. And it's so in the middle of nowhere in 1955 that it's still the middle of nowhere to this day, pretty much. It is. Yes. It's still not a booming town, But as a matter of fact, the reason why it's Kelly-Hopkinsville is because they literally lived on the line in between the two. And if you know anything about the Midwest, the line in between any two cities is usually the middle of nowhere.
Right. Yeah, it's very rural. And I think technically the property is in Kelly, but it's very telling that the police station they went to was in Hopkinsville.
Right, in the next town. Right. So it is a whole situation. So they're getting very frustrated and they don't really want to talk to people. Well, thankfully, we had a saint come marching in, and which is the only reason why well, this it's kind of why the facts are what they are, and they're kind of difficult. But we had this gentleman by the name of Andrew Ledwith, who was a local engineer who happened to have an interest in UFOs. He was a local engineer for the local radio station, and he actually comes in by chance on his day off and hears the story of this family and kind of what they were going through. And he takes the helm on it, and he goes and sits down with the family, and he gets a proper report from them. And not only does Andrew get a proper report from them, Andrew is, thank God, the reason why we now have 4 sketches that relate directly to this event now, which is good. 3 of the sketches are the creature themselves. For the most part, there is one particular image that most of them agreed on what it was, but the other 2 images are kind of variances on the same, but it's the same creature, like told through different eyes.
Oh, it definitely is. And if anybody wants to really dig into this, like you can see all of these sketches and photographs from the scene and everything. QFOS, the Center for UFO Studies, released a book, Close Encounter at Kelly and Others, of 1955. They released it in 1978. And literally, if you just like Google Close Encounter at Kelly and Others of 1955, the Center for UFO Studies will straight up give you a PDF copy of this book. So,
Nice.
kudos to you, Center for UFO Studies, for being awesome and doing shit the right fucking way.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a super cool book. And you can see, like I said, all of these sketches, photographs of the scene, layouts of the farmhouse and everything. Like, they were thorough as fuck. Like, way more information than you actually want. But anything you could possibly imagine that you would want to know, it's in here.
Yeah. Probably the most reliable source for this encounter. Not the media reports, but this is definitely, I agree. Yeah. And then of course the fourth sketch Andrew made was the UFO itself that Billy Ray saw. Allegedly. So thank God for him.
Yes.
Like I said, taking the lead on it and going, you know what? Because the family is getting more and more frustrated, and to the point to where they don't want to talk to the media. They were burnt out on it. They were like, oh, hell no, we're done with this. They actually even started to charge people coming onto the property. If you want to camp here, $5. If you want to come in and take a picture, $5. I don't know how much it was. I'm just saying $5. But
sure.
They start charging people to come check out the area. And it wasn't, of course, people spun this in a bad light.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, well, they're carnies, so therefore, look at what they're doing. It wasn't that. It was more they're trying to deter people from coming on the property.
Yeah, like this is one that drives me nuts because it is, as you said, it really is this just another form of fucking classism that we're going to see in here, where because some of these witnesses happen to work for a carnival, they are viewing their actions in the worst possible light and judging them so harshly based on their expectations of how they view their lessers, basically, instead of looking at this fucking situation objectively and going, what the fuck would you do? What would you do if you had people invading your fucking privacy constantly? What would you do? I don't think it's unreasonable at all to expect, like, hey, fucking pay me or get out of here. Like, what are you doing on my property all the time? This is a working farm, like we have shit to do today. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was kind of, again, it was painted in a bad light, but they were just really trying to get people to stay the fuck off their land. Or, at least, hey, if you're going to hinder my work, pay me for my time. I don't blame you.
Make it worthwhile.
If I had a house that was attacked by goblins, I'd fucking charge people to come see it too. Again, I get it. I get marketing. I understand. I like money too. I like having food and electricity. Well, they didn't have electricity. Oh, I don't know if they... Anyway, you get my point. Yeah. So...
I think they probably had electricity. But yeah, no
I think they
indoor
did, yeah.
plumbing. Like
Because I
people
think
had
they
electricity
mentioned,
way before they had indoor plumbing in a lot of areas.
I think they mentioned the second go round with the goblins. Or God, see, I called them goblins. Now I'm fucking up.
Space goblins is catching
Glenny
on.
was right. Glenny was watching TV, is what. So I mean, you have to have
Yeah.
electric for that.
Yeah,
So.
and they do turn the lights out at one
Oh
point.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure.
electric, just no running water. Anyway,
Right.
I can't pay my bills with attention. Sorry, I wish I could. Oh man, that's.
Oh
Whew.
man, that would be great.
I would be rolling in it. Let me tell you. Anyway, so eventually, like we kind of touched on the beginning of the of this discussion here, they were intending to own the farm, but they were intending on buying the farm. But because of the train wreck that was happening in their lives, they did eventually abandon the farm completely, and then went dark. They didn't disappear or anything like that. They just simply did not want to deal with it anymore. And they left. Some people say that they left because because the goblins came back. Um, that's never really been confirmed by a credible source. Maybe it is, or maybe it's just because all the motherfucking people that would walk in and out of the house at all hours of the day and night. I don't know. So
Yeah, that's really tragic, honestly. I had read that they were in the process of trying to purchase the farm, like when this was all happening. And so you can only imagine like how this would have interfered with that, and how distressing this would be for a family to just abandon this farm that just a couple days ago they wanted to buy, and they worked hard for that shit. It's not easy making money like as a farmer. It's not easy at all.
and it's expensive.
It
Farming
is.
is we've kind of talked about it when we covered cattle mutilation in the past, and like how much it really costs to have the fucking aliens come and experiment on your cattle. It sucks.
Right. So they would have worked their asses off.
Yeah.
Harder than most people have ever worked in their lives.
Yep.
To put themselves in a position to do this and then to just walk away from it.
Yeah.
That's not a decision. That's not a decision that they would have made lightly. There's just no way.
Yeah. So let's let's kind of speculate a little bit about kind of some of the things in the story here.
Sure.
One of the things that I definitely want to talk about is the people that were involved in the investigation. So one of the claims, Tobias, like you said, says that there were 4, Army and military personnel during the investigation.
Yeah.
I've never been able to verify this. Have you?
No.
And I see this claim, and I see it on a vanilla page like Wikipedia, and it says that allegedly this was dubbed a hoax in Project Blue Book. I don't think it was ever a point of investigation for Blue Book. I think that maybe it had been mentioned when they were kind of talking about hoaxes in general.
Right.
But I don't think that it was ever investigated by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, their personnel,
Right.
And the military men have like I said, kind of been up for debate as to what that means. Is it just that, again, this is a small town? Is it that they happen to have a couple of army men nearby because there was an army base nearby?
That would be my guess. Not like a formal military investigation. Like at that time, you would have expected all of the local police agencies to be in communication with each other. And this is not, look, it's probably way more relaxed than people think it is, especially in 1955, where they had a line they could call and they'd be like, hey guys, I don't know what's going on, but this is what's been reported to us. So, if you're interested, you want to come check it out, come check it out. And then some, 4 MPs from the military base, because a UFO was mentioned and it's 1955, were probably oh, well, yeah, shit. All right, sure.
Yeah.
And then they came and checked it out with them.
Right.
And that's probably as far as it goes.
It's people seem to forget that any type of official paperwork from that time is declassified. And nothing has ever really come forward that says that the United States government investigated this and found there was nothing to it. or found that it was to it, or was really involved with it at all. It just seemed like a very, like you said, just a very casual, hey, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have, people with some better guns than us come check this out.
Yeah, or just even other equipment they don't have, like a Geiger counter or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know how far that claim goes because I've never seen any real official documentation on it.
I've only seen like newspaper reports from the time.
We could do like a collective, we could do like a project and we could file a FOIA and see if we get something.
Good. It would not be my first FOIA.
Right. I mean, it's not hard to do, really. I mean, so
No, it just takes time and a little bit of money usually.
yeah. So I mean, if you guys are interested in that, we'll dig it out for you and see if there's anything. But as far as I know, there really isn't anything there. Of course, another skeptical claim for the story, we'll kind of talk about the theories here, is that these were just barn owls. These are just owls.
Fucking fuck off with your barn owls. Not you, but like that explanation. Oh God.
They're just
so
owls.
Irritating.
They got big eyes like owls do that glow yellow in the dark.
Yeah, owls with their famously long arms and glowing eyes and metallic skin.
Yeah. That are impervious to bullets.
Yeah, glowing owls. They're just
Glowing
everywhere.
owls.
We have those here. Oh, that's infuriating. This is what I was talking about before. Okay. So a lot of people who claim to be skeptics are, I think elitist would be a better word.
Yeah.
Because at this time and ongoing, what some folks would do is they would look at this family, and they would look at their relative level of education. They would look where they lived. They would look at everybody's profession. And they would go, oh, well, these people, they just don't know what they saw. These people. And it is just the slimiest, shittiest, grossest way to think about somebody else and dismiss their experience, because the idea that this family who lived in this environment wouldn't recognize an animal common to it, to the point where they would shoot up their own fucking house and then flee to the police, is insane. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You really think it was a goddamn owl? Like, that's crazier than space goblins.
No, it really is. It really is. Because let me tell you something. These people, again, I don't know if we said it before. Let's say it again, though. They are living in rural Kentucky as people that farm, and farmers work outside. You think that these people don't know what an owl looks like? Are you serious? They've seen more owls in their 1 week than you, elitist, have probably ever seen in your whole lifetime.
Correct.
Let's be honest.
Hell yeah. They are intimately familiar. When you have to get up and go outside in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you are intimately familiar with the nighttime denizens of your environment. So people can fuck right off with the idea that this family did not know what lived around them, or that they were unable to recognize a fucking owl.
Yeah. And just not to mention that none of it sounds like an owl. I mean, it's the same as going, okay, well, they had legs, and they had head, and they had arms. Humans have legs, head, and arms. Obviously, it's just a human.
Probably just human owls, hybrids. I would guess. I shot an owl the other day, and it made a metallic ping and did a backflip, so...
And then glowed really bright.
And glowed. It was so mad it was glowing. It's like, motherfucker, did you just shoot me? I'm going to glow at you so fucking hard.
You were like, well, holy shit, maybe they did see owls.
And I'm like, oh, goddamn, it's one of them Kelly-Hopkinsville owls.
Yeah. Guys, this is stupid. And you sound stupid when you say you sound really, you sound a lot dumber than just going, yeah, it's probably aliens.
I could have been anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anything but owls.
Come on, this is dumb. But, okay, so let's take that too and mix it with the other part of it is that they, of course it was owls, and they just thought it was something else because they were drunk. They were drunkards.
Oh boy. Now those people did not know.
They didn't do their homework.
No, they did not, because that was a dry house. That was my understanding, was that alcohol was not kept in the home of Glennie Langford. She did not care for it.
Nope. She wasn't having it. And let me tell you something about those southern meemaws. You don't fuck with them.
No.
Like, you don't break those rules.
Mm-mm.
And let's just pretend for a second. Maybe the men did sneak some booze. Okay, maybe that's what Billy Ray was doing, right? He wasn't out getting at the well. He was out getting a drink, right? They wouldn't have gotten drunk enough. Well, let's just talk about that in general. You don't hallucinate when you're drunk, first of all. You're
Not
unreasonable.
Usually. Yeah, it's not fucking Dumbo. You don't start seeing pink elephants and shit.
Right. But let's just say that even if they did have a little hooch, they were not getting drunk enough to tip them off to Glennie, because she would have ripped another hole right next to the current asshole. Right between the asshole and the taint, she would have ripped it wide open.
Well, what about, Aileen and Glennie and all these other folks that were there?
Right.
Yeah, who saw the same thing. They weren't drunk. No. And the police officers that they spoke to didn't think any alcohol was involved with this, So even like if these guys had been drinking, the police are trained to look for that, and they were sure that there was no alcohol or drugs of any kind involved. Yeah. So that should be all anybody needs. It's not, because again, we're dealing with elitist assholes, but that should have ended it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, again, if you think any of those things, you're just wrong. You just don't know what you're talking about. And it's okay, like, to have your first impression, to maybe hear a quick little whim of this story and have your first impression be some of those things. But when you really actually look at it, when you really deep dive into it, none of those things make any fucking sense. Mm-hmm. They just don't add up. And that's all right. That's okay, but don't be trying to come for me. Listen, don't do it. Just telling you right now, because I'm gonna make you look real fucking dumb.
That's right.
Just gonna do it. So a lot of there are some, like I said, there's some facts that do get a little muddy, and it's just because of the media frenzy that was happening at the time, as well as the story being, guess what, 69 years old. So
sorry, I'm like 11 myself. I'm going on 12.
Yeah, same. Yeah. There are some things about the story that just aren't 100%. It doesn't. I don't think those facts matter so much. I don't give a fuck if it was 12 people or 10 people in the house. They all seem to have the same story. I don't give a fuck. And again, I can accept the fact that, again, information just gets lost in translation. That's fine. I don't give a fuck about, really, that's the only real detail about it that was off.
Yeah, some of the individual testimony doesn't necessarily match up one for one when you're looking at the time specifically. Because again, they're not... they don't all have fucking cell phones and smartwatches. Right. They're not keeping careful track of the time while this is happening. They're
not waiting around for 11:11, right? They're fucking
So of course, some of that stuff is going to be a little different, and people perceive things differently.
Yes.
So two people observing the same phenomenon will have slightly different interpretations and thus different testimony, surrounding it, but what you look for is the core commonality, of that testimony, and enough of it matches up in this case, where the core phenomenon itself, that is consistent and consistent enough to take seriously, I think.
And I would say that if there, if their details were exactly the same, that would be a red flag, you know?
Yeah, if they if it seemed like they spent time getting their story straight or something.
Right. You know, if they were obsessed with the time or things like that, I
Right.
mean, it would just, that would seem weird. And suspicious. Like you said, there's definitely going to be a variance as to the details of it. You've got kids that were there all the way up to pretty much grandma age, right? Basically,
Yeah.
like you've got this whole variance of ages that are having their own human experience. A child is going to describe this differently than an adult's going to. The adult that shot at it and looked it in the face is going to see it differently than the person who simply saw it looking in the window. That's just the way that is. That's normal with an event like this. So, you know, I want to talk about kind of, you know, what's the possibility here. I told you guys we would talk about the term goblin a little bit and kind of where this story is now. Because to my knowledge, nothing like this has ever happened again. Tobias, are you familiar with anything that happened like this?
Not specifically like this. Did you? I guess I wanted to mention it before we go any further. Did you look into any of the claims of escaped circus animals?
I didn't.
As an explanation, because there are some people who think that what they saw were in fact like escaped monkeys from the circus.
From escaped radioactive metallic monkeys. Okay.
Yeah, there's not a lot to support this.
No, go ahead. By all means.
I mean, I that's off the top of my head. Basically, the whole skeptical explanation is that there was a circus nearby, and that some animals escaped from it, and that's what they saw. Which is weird because we didn't end up with any dead monkeys, you know.
Well,
and
exactly. Yes,
you would have expected that. It doesn't explain the UFO, nor was there a circus coming forward at the time going, hey, you know, look, we had some animals escape. Because speaking of marketing, what circus in their right mind would turn down that publicity?
Right.
Nobody would.
And they would even twist it and be like, oh, yeah, we had those exact creatures. They came from outer space, you know?
Come see our world famous fucking space monkeys.
And then they'd start painting up their fucking monkeys and fucking metallic paint.
Yeah, it'd be horrible. They'd probably coat them in radium or some shit.
Well, that's what they
50s.
do, you know?
Yeah.
That's what they would do. But yeah, there's no, well, right. And without having a track record of the wrecked circus train or whatever, it's a fucking, you might as well have just said it's a weather balloon because that's what that explanation is.
So it was swamp gas reflecting off of Venus.
Yeah.
From a weather balloon.
Yeah, that's what that is.
In a temperature inversion.
Because we see that with a lot of different stories with this kind of devil monkeys is like immediately that's what comes to mind for me. People assume are escaped circus animals, but again, just like the owl, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't cover all the bases. It doesn't feel good, and there's just no proof. So we have just as much proof that they're space aliens that we do that they're monkeys that we do. Well, we got probably more proof that they're monkeys than they are owls, but
yeah, fucking owls. It's just like the sandhill crane explanation for Mothman.
Stupid. Yeah.
Yes.
So stupid.
It's like, I get it, armchair scientist. You don't like going outside, but the rest of us recognize that that's pretty dumb.
It's really dumb. The Mothman would have to be like 10 sandhill cranes tied together side by side.
Okay. Hold on. I'll be right back. I'm going to go tie. We have a lot of sandhill cranes up here. I'm going to go tie 10 of them together.
Right. And then I'll let them fly off.
Oh, God. The headline there is going to be local man pecked to death by sandhill cranes. They're big. Like you would not want to fuck with one.
They are big, but they're really skinny. And like the Mothman is not.
But they will peck the shit out of you, I bet. I wouldn't fuck with one.
So anyway, moving on to the topic of goblins. So this story had been popular in this circle for them, in general. Again, this is a lot of people's favorite story.
Oh yeah, it's up there with Flatwoods Monster and shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just real fucking obscure. It probably absolutely happened. You know what I mean? There's no reason not to believe it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a big story. It has everything. It's real sexy. And but it really propelled into popularity with a little production you guys might have heard of called Hellier.
I'm not familiar.
You can actually kind of genuinely say that. I don't think you ever really watched it.
No, I've funny story. Greg and Dana actually sent me the first 3 episodes before it came out because we had met at a conference and we got along, and they asked me to review it for the Singular Fortean Society. And so I did watch the first 3 episodes and wrote a review. It was a pretty nice review, but I didn't get to watch the whole season, so it wasn't a review of the entire, of the entirety of season 1. So probably would have been different if that was the case, but it is what it is.
We'll just leave it at that for now. Like, again, if we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it behind the paywall. I'm going to make the Newkirks pay to listen to us talk about it. So,
okay, fair enough.
Anyway, so, but Hellier comes out, and the main focus is that they have this guy that writes in who owns property in Kentucky, who claims to be being kind of terrorized by goblins. And the Hellier team, or whoever it was at the time, I think it was just Greg and Dana initially, kind of attributed this to the Kelly-Hopkinsville incident. Just because, you kind of had that element of them being terrorized by these little creatures. And that's really the only tie that they have. Nobody fucking called them goblins before this. Nobody thought that they were coming out of inner Earth that they lived here. It just wasn't an element of the story until this happened.
Well, I had always called them goblins, and I had seen them referred to as goblins
prior
before,
to that, really,
like Hellier. Yes,
interesting.
Personally, now that that's my experience. I definitely did not start calling them that myself because of Hellier. I had my whole life I was calling them the Kelly-Hopkinsville Goblins.
Well, okay, maybe I'm being a little too too strict.
Some of the eyewitnesses at the time related them to goblins.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think that was their way of understanding it. That was the only context they had.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
I don't like it. So
yeah, no, I mean, sorry, I didn't feel good about doing that, but like, just FYI, like they're not responsible for goblins. Goblins is a whole thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd never heard them in the context of goblins until Hellier. Now, granted, when I started doing this, Hellier was already out. So
that'll do it.
To keep in mind. And prior to this, my interest was in cryptozoology, and this was not a part of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're alien.
I would have started reading about this like fucking shit. How old am I? Yeah, Tobias, I would have
knew about it in August 23rd, 1955, right?
No, literally, this would have been like the late 80s, early 90s, probably early 90s when I was in junior high. Would have been the first time I started reading about like specifically the Kelly-Hopkinsville goblins.
Well, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. So there's that.
No, that's one of your best qualities is honesty, honest intellectualism. And we all like shit happens. I forgot what fucking arrow stood for. All right. Like, what are you going to do? Yeah. Sometimes we just fuck up. Who cares?
You told me at the beginning of this episode, and I still don't remember what arrow stands for. So,
All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. I'll never forget again because I embarrassed myself about it. So now it's going to be burned into my mind forever.
And nobody's
anxiety.
Nobody's even going to ask you about it. It's just anytime you have to bring up arrow, you're going to automatically just spew it all out.
Yeah, it's tattooed on my brain.
But either way, okay, so I can be wrong about that, and that's fine. Either way, I dislike that association, because what the hell your crew is investigating sounds drastically different from this incident. The only similarity that they seem to have is that they're 3 feet tall, and they're small creatures, and that they seem to be terrorizing a family. But the Kelly-Hopkinsville creatures did not stick around. They didn't persist. And Hellier, this thing persisted until the guy eventually had to move off the property. And that kind of plays on the people that say that the family moved from the farmhouse initially because of the creatures, but there's nothing to back that up. So I'm not a big fan of the term itself. Like we talked about at the top of the episode here, when I think of goblin, I think of things that live here.
Mm-hmm.
And this to me seems very extraterrestrial as opposed to terrestrial, at minimum. Now, granted, I do have some other issues. I will point out the spaceship that Billy Ray Taylor allegedly saw. One thing that was fascinating about that claim was that he talked about the exhaust and it having this strange rainbow tail on it. Well, that's not unusual for meteors.
True. There were reportedly several witnesses of meteors that night, one of whom was a police officer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I've seen it with my own eyes. Now, granted, they don't usually have a full spectrum rainbow, but this might not have. He didn't say, "Oh, it was Roy G. Biv,"
Sure.
He just said that it had a very colorful exhaust. But we had one.
I want to hear Billy Ray say Roy G. Biv.
That's something I will never forget that one. That one's burned into my memory from kindergarten. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Swan. I don't know what her name was.
Yeah, you can't remember her name, but you goddamn better well remember Roy G. Biv.
Thank you, Mrs. Roy G. Biv. Yeah. That's her name. That's why I remember. No, but we had a neat one that happened on Halloween night a couple years ago. I think it was actually 2020, the pandemic year. And it had a blue-green tail on it, it's really fucking cool to see. And if you don't know what you're looking at, like smoke rings in the sky, without watermarks, then you will be very confused.
It's true. I've seen a low, like a bolide meteor that was huge, break up over Wisconsin. And it seemed like it started with a flash of lightning and then this huge white ball of light. And it was fucking crazy looking. And if I didn't know anything about anything, and I didn't have access to the internet, I would have been like, what the fuck? So yeah I get it.
So I can settle on the fact that wasn't actually a spaceship, but what a fucking weird coincidence that would be. To have seen this flying disc with a rainbow on it, and then all of a sudden these creatures show up. Crazier things have happened, I guess, but
sure.
I could buy that, maybe these things didn't come from space. I don't know. The metallic body thing, it just fits with all the other ufology lore.
Right.
That's how I feel about it.
Let's get weird about it for a second, right? So let's suppose that we entertain the reality of something like ultra-terrestrials.
Sure.
So if you had just seen this flying object that you thought represented an extraterrestrial spacecraft, and you've got these beings that are then going to invade your reality, and they're going to base their appearance and mannerisms, and even on some level how they interact with your environment, on your preconceived expectations, then maybe what the Kelly-Hopkinsville goblins represent are the result of Billy Ray's subconscious after seeing what he thought was this extraterrestrial spacecraft. And I'm not saying that he created this hallucination or something. I'm talking about beings that interface with us on some level directly through consciousness, peering into your subconscious and plucking out in appearance a body, if you will, based on what they think you expect to see under these circumstances. Maybe that's how we got here. I don't know. Just being weird.
That is some woo right there. I love it though. Sure, I'm buying what you're selling. You know, I'm sniffing what you're scratching. You know,
that is the worst way I have ever heard anybody put that. But I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm rocking what you're rolling. I could do this all night. I got so many of them. Anyway,
wonderful.
You know, I'm not going to say that that's not what it is. I have my own issues with us kind of manifesting this stuff.
Yeah, who knows? I'm just speculating.
It makes more sense than owls, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, makes more sense than owls. I mean, especially if you like think of like how cartoonish they are. I mean, carnies are kind of adjacent to like the circus, right? So I could see them being playful. They weren't dangerous, which is something we really didn't talk about. Like, they didn't seem to want to cause any harm. They might have grabbed that guy's hair, but not, you know, out of malice.
Yeah. I mean, that's just something you do to fuck with somebody. And I think we mentioned that early on, because when they were approaching with their hands up, you know, I was like, dude, they have their hands up. Like, don't shoot them. You don't shoot somebody with their hands up.
That's the universal don't shoot.
Yeah, like, what are you, the bad guy in a John Wayne movie? What the fuck? Shooting people with their hands up.
That's so rude. I know. You know, but
seriously.
No, I agree. Like, these things didn't seem violent at all. They just genuinely seemed curious and playful. And so I mean, I could see that in, you know, manifesting from Billy Ray himself. Because maybe that was his nature. Well, I don't know the guy, you know, maybe he himself was playful and made of metal. I don't know. But no, you know, that's something that, again, we didn't really talk about, but yeah, they're just shooting at these things and they're like, you know, grabbing your hair in a, you know, got your nose kind of way.
Right.
Like,
Basically.
Hopping around the Hopkinsville area. No, I mean, you know, that could be, it could be, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are, they're still not terrestrial, right? Because they're ultra terrestrial, of course. But you know, it doesn't give a terrestrial explanation. I don't think there is a terrestrial explanation, or we would have more people seeing these things in that area, is what I was kind of saying.
Sure.
So I could buy that. And then what Billy Ray saw was, it could have been the catalyst that kind of kicked off this event. I mean, maybe it was just their turn. You know, people have these experiences, and just in all the research that I've done on this phenomena, and when I say phenomena, God, I literally mean everything.
Right.
One thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is how personal these experiences are.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of my kind of explanations for the types of things that we see is that we have to see them, because for whatever reason, it is a cataclysmic event that happens in our life and makes our life go on a weird trajectory. I definitely did not see myself having a podcast and talking about this shit and trying to make it my day job back in 2016 when I saw the Mothman. Didn't think that was going to happen.
Right.
You know, I thought that I was just a regular person that made up some shit, right? Just saw some shit that really wasn't there or whatever. But, you know, in talking with other people that have experienced this stuff, that it seems to be something that kind of happens. And maybe like this just happened to be that family's turn to have that experience. And maybe Billy Ray seeing the meteor just kind of gave it a reason.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's entirely possible. I think that's, again, like, very astute, you know? Yeah, just agree. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think that it's entirely possible that meteor and his misidentification of it was enough to inform how these entities decided to look based on his preconceived notions sparked by the misidentification. It's a tangled web, you know, but we can begin to unravel it a little bit.
And maybe that's why it looks slightly different to everybody else, because their own personal perception is different, and their perception is framing what these look like. I'm just saying, if you really want to get woo, baby, we can get so woo up in here.
Oh, yes. That's what we do.
We're going to Woo Town.
Well, for experiences like this, you have to be willing. Now, I'm not saying I believe anything that we've just speculated about, because I don't find belief without evidence to be particularly useful. But I do think it's very important that we keep an open mind and be willing to hypothesize about very strange possibilities when examining these subjects, because especially in a case like this where you're capable of making compelling arguments against any of the prosaic explanations presented, what are you left with? You have to be willing to get weird with it. It's the only fucking direction left to go.
Yeah, I agree. Why not? There's no harm in getting weird with it,
Right.
You're not going to add or take away anything to this at this point. It's 69 years old. Let me remind you guys, it's a 69-year-old case. We're never going to get to the bottom of it. We might get to the bottom side of it.
We'll never get to the bottom of the 69-year-old case.
Yeah. But just saying, it's okay to get a little weird with it. Why not? That's kind of the fun part, right? Of doing what we do, is that we can, and nobody fucking bats an eye.
Oh, totally.
I'll tell you, in the beginning of my research, I know now that I'm very wrong about what I thought. But honestly, I had kind of tied this case to the Flatwoods Monster incident in a very strange way. And it was through a lot of, I'm going to be that guy, synchronicity, and just kind of maybe what might have made sense at the time. But I'll tell you guys what I used to think about it. So this case happened in 1955, and the Flatwoods Monster incident happened in 1952. One of the strange things that occurs in the Flatwoods Monster case is that weird spade head and the fact that it was made completely of metal. And then with this, they had these big goofy ears and were also made of metal. I had a theory that potentially the Flatwoods Monster was here to maybe lay some type of eggs out of its cloaca. And just because we haven't used that word yet this episode.
That's right, cloaca. It's my favorite.
And its babies would hatch here on Earth, and that's kind of what it was doing. And those babies ended up being the Kelly-Hopkinsville creatures, and they just look like a very juvenile form of the Flatwoods Monster. And the biggest tie between this, how I knew for sure that I was totally right, is because this happened to the Sutton family. And the Braxy encounter happened in Sutton, West Virginia.
Whoa.
How about that?
You can't see it, but my mind is blown right now.
It's completely blown out of your skull. It's gone.
Yes. I need medical attention.
But this just goes to show, again, this was, my God, I was uninformed at the time of all of that and why that didn't make sense. But, you can change your mind on things, and it can be wild. And it could be out there, and any theory that I have on it, again, doesn't add or take away anything from the experience.
Nope.
So,
not unless it's barn owls.
Then you're just fucking wrong. And again, I'll make you feel badly. That's
you're bad. Your explanation is bad, and you should feel bad.
You should feel bad. I will bully you for that.
We're going to push you down. We're going to take your lunch money. But you know what? You're still the bad guy here.
You're still the bad guy. What do I believe? Here's what I believe now. I believe that something anomalous happened to these people without a doubt. I fucking believe in this story so much. I cannot tell you what it is exactly that happened. I can't tell you where these things came from, if they're still here, if they'll ever come back. I have no fucking idea. But I believe that they had a horrifying experience that rocked them for the rest of their life. And that's what I believe. So.
No, I think you're spot on. I think we see this a lot in this field, and it goes, as you said before, unmentioned, unfortunately. because these experiences, regardless of what you think causes them, do have tremendous impacts on people's lives, and I do think that we saw that here. And so, regardless of what you think is behind it, it's so important to remember the human impact and that there are human beings behind the story, and to treat them with the compassion and respect that all human beings deserve. And I think that gets forgotten a lot in this field, and I think it gets forgotten a lot specifically with this particular story. So I'm glad that we could do it, and we could kind of remind people of that fact in particular.
Yeah. And I just to kind of bring it around here, I really want you guys to remember some very specific details about this case. I don't want you to forget it. If you go and talk about this, you need to mention these things. You need to talk about the weird metal bodies. You need to talk about the weird leg movements where they were only moving from the hip like a Barbie doll. You need to talk about the fact that they glowed even brighter when they were shot at.
Running using their arms.
Those are so fucking cool, and nobody ever talks about them. I'm disappointed. So I just want to remind you again, because now you'll never forget it. So when next time you're talking about these creatures, you might call them goblins, and I might think you're wrong for it, but remember those details. So,
yes.
Tobias, do you have any final words on the Kelly-Hopkinsville Encounter?
Oh, nothing we haven't already touched on. Just my usual of I make it sound so mundane. No, if there's one thing that this case again reminds me of, it's the importance of examining our own biases, of making sure that our particular privilege isn't causing us to prejudge somebody else. And that we are remembering the human impact of these experiences and treating people with respect and compassion at all times.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, in case we haven't said it enough yet, especially this episode, happy 69th birthday, Kelly-Hopkinsville creatures. I am a big fan of your mom, the Flatwoods Monster. And I hope you
had her poster on my wall in my bedroom growing up.
Oh yeah, was she in like a sexy pose or?
Oh yeah, it's like Baywatch.
She's the MILF of Fortean studies.
She is now.
Now that I put that out there, yeah, you're welcome. I hope you guys come back in another 69 years. I hope you come back before that, so I get a chance to hang out with you. That'd be cool.
That's true.
We can do backflips and shit together. We can go walk around in bikinis and cemeteries. It'll be sweet.
I can't wait to put my watermark on that.
All right. I don't know why it turned into Matthew McConaughey, but here we are. With that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday